Chapter 270. This beautiful figure was Chen Shui. Looking down from the sky, there were many sand dunes and valleys. There were also some dilapidated ancient ruins and ancient cities that emitted a dazzling golden light under the sun. So, Chen Shui sensed that there were at least 100 cultivators with powerful auras within 1,000 miles. This is the outer area of the Mirage Desert. If we continue to approach the core, we will reach the protective barrier formed by the sandstorm. If you can enter, then follow me. If you can't, then leave quickly. Don't stay here for too long in case you are killed by other cultivators. Senior Wang, is it really that serious? Our Spirit Serpent Valley is a rank 9 sect. Don't think that a rank 9 sect can do anything. Not to mention our Spirit Serpent Valley, even the disciples of the Yuan Gate would be killed here. The Mirage Desert gathers cultivators from the eastern and western continents and the southern sea islands. Those who dare to come here are all geniuses among geniuses. There are countless disciples from powerful sects and super geniuses from the Demon Dao and the Demon Dao. Even I have to be careful. Oh, Senior Wang, is it really that difficult to enter? Very difficult. The Mirage Desert is also known as the City in the Sky. It only opens once every 100 years. According to the records of the sect, only Golden Core Realm and Nascent Soul Realm cultivators under the age of 30 can enter. Those with a low cultivation base, high cultivation base, or over the age limit will not be able to enter. Then we are all within the criteria. The basic criteria are met, but you have to pass the City in the Mirage Desert test. Only those who are ranked above 1,000 will be able to enter. Relatively speaking, Golden Core Realm cultivators like you have less chances than Nascent Soul Realm cultivators. But the Mirage Desert test does not depend on one's cultivation level. The most important thing is potential. You will know when you participate in the test. Let's go, there are still 10 days. I think many people have already arrived. Ruochen, you will see the super geniuses of the Western continent and the Southern Sea Islands in this trial. Don't limit your vision to Chu Qing Tian of the Yuan Gate and Gu Xing of the Sky Sword sect. The competition between the sects will end 1 year later. Now, you are representing the top geniuses of the Eastern continent. You are on the same side. Competition is fine, but we can't kill each other. Originally, if Xia Yuyu had not advanced to the Incarnation Realm, the 4 of you should have been able to obtain a decent harvest. Unfortunately, she had lost the right. It's up to the 3 of you now. This time, the Yuan Gate's Chu Qing Tian is in charge. You don't have to be so calculative. It isn't that he's stronger than you, and it's just that the Origin Gate is stronger. During the Mirage Realm test, try your best to aim for the highest ranking. Don't hide your strength. This is related to the fate of the Eastern continent and your own. It would be even better if he could defeat Chu Qing Tian and Gu Xing in terms of ranking. Furthermore, the higher your ranking, the more opportunities you will encounter in the area you enter. Don't worry, I will do my best. Whether it's Chu Qingtan or Gu Xing, they can forget about beating me. Dozens of disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect were flying in the Mirage Land Desert, and a late-stage nascent Soul Realm youth said to Wu Ruochen. Although his combat strength was no longer comparable to Wu Ruochen's, his age and experience made him the leader of the Sky Sword sect to participate in the Mirage Desert. 3 days later, when Shenhao appeared in the Mirage Desert, he saw thousands of Golden Core Stage and Nascent Soul Stage disciples gathered together outside a sandstorm barrier that blotted out the sky. These disciples were all super geniuses of the Eastern continent. Although his father didn't tell Shenhao about the Mirage Desert, there were very detailed records of it in the sect's information. The Mirage Desert was a city in the sky that opened once every 100 years. It was definitely a competition between the super geniuses of the Eastern and Western continents and the Southern Sea Islands. What could one obtain in the city? Life or death? It depended on each person's fate, but the competition would start before entering the City in the Sky. That was the ranking pagoda. It was a competition between one's own fate and the fate of the continent they belonged to. However, including the 6th grade sects, very few people from the low-grade sects participated. It wasn't that they couldn't or didn't want to, but it was useless even if they went. They wouldn't be able to enter the top 1,000. These low-grade sects would only remind their disciples to go if they were truly super geniuses. There are so many people. Chen Hao stared at the thousands of young disciples and was slightly shocked. Whether it was the Golden Core realm or the Nascent Soul realm, their auras were extremely powerful. They were definitely super geniuses in the same realm. Only a small part of them were rogue cultivators. Most of them were disciples of the sects sitting together. Most of them were super geniuses of the 7th grade sects and above. Chen Hao didn't completely conceal his aura and landed at the back of the crowd. A disciple of the star-picking sect? That's funny. A 3rd grade sect with a late-stage Golden Core realm disciple dares to come to the Mirage Desert. Before Chen Hao appeared, he had changed into the star-picking robe that symbolized his identity as a disciple of the star-picking sect. The reason for this was very simple. He was a member of the star-picking sect and also a member of the Eastern continent. If he wanted to win providence for himself, he could only be himself openly. Don't underestimate him. He should be Chen Hao, who has been the talk of the town recently. Chen Hao? The Chen Hao who killed Fan Fong and saved Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan from the Red Flame Beast? He must be. Otherwise, who would dare to come to the star-picking sect? As the people around discussed, everyone's attention was focused on them. The Nascent Soul Realm experts who didn't take Chen Hao seriously looked over and used their minds to check him out. Fan Fong, who was half a step away from the Nascent Soul Realm, was quite famous in the cultivation world. Whether it was talent or combat strength, he was comparable to the super geniuses of the 8th grade sections. He was not much inferior to the super geniuses of the 9th grade sections. Chen Hao was able to kill him when he was only at the late-stage Golden Core realm. The commotion he caused was huge, especially when the Ling Tian sect came out to protect him. He's here too? Chen Shui saw Chen Hao immediately. She was sitting cross-legged at the back of the crowd alone. Her aura was cold, her graceful figure, and her beautiful face hidden under the black veil was exceptionally eye-catching. However, some people who came forward to invite her to join their team were coldly rejected by Chen Shui. Even the experts at the peak of the late-stage Nascent Soul realm were no exception. If it was any other time or place, someone would have flipped out. However, no one dared to cause trouble at this time. At least before entering the Sky City, no one dared to cause trouble. This was because every force represented the Eastern continent's honor. Those who could come here naturally knew the rules. Brother Chen, how have you been? Whoosh. Not long after Chen Hao sat down, 2 streaks of light flashed and flew in front of him. Duan Yufei cupped his fists and said with a smile on his face. Xia Lanlan glared at Chen Hao. Her gaze was not friendly, but there was no hostility. Chen Hao smiled and stood up to return the greeting. I'm fine. Thank you for the help of Brother Duan's sect. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Duan Yufei smiled and shook his head. This has nothing to do with me. Brother Chen understands. Unfortunately, she won't be coming this time. Duan Yufei seemed to be implying something. So what if she comes? Some people are as timid as mice and don't even dare to recognize her. Xia Lanlan glared at Chen Hao. Obviously, she already knew about Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu's meeting. She was very dissatisfied that Chen Hao didn't even have the courage to recognize her face to face. She was outspoken and her considerations were very simple. She didn't think about the interests of the sect and other big issues. In her opinion, since Yuyu was so good to Chen Hao should disregard everything and throw away everything. This was out of Chen Hao's expectations. He didn't expect Xia Yuyu and Xia Lanlan to have such a good relationship. Hearing Xia Lanlan's words, Duan Yufei pulled Xia Lanlan and stared at Chen Hao. Brother Chen, don't mind her. Lanlan is her best sister, and no one knows her better than her. Let's not talk about this. Brother Chen, this is our Ling Tian sect's communication talisman. After you enter, if you encounter a dangerous place that you're not confident in, you can inform me and we'll explore together. It's very difficult to obtain the greatest benefits by yourself. Alright, Chen Hao slightly hesitated, but he still took the communication talisman from Duan Yufei's hand and replied. After Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan left, Chen Shui suddenly stood up under the attention of many obscure gazes. Her figure flashed and arrived before Chen Hao. She glanced at Chen Hao through the black veil and sat beside Chen Hao. The distance between them was only a foot, and they were practically shoulder to shoulder. This kind of rejoicing instantly made Chen Hao, who was already one of the focal points, attract even more attention and cause a flurry of discussion. You broke through to the nascent soul stage so quickly? Chen Hao turned his head and asked with a slightly surprised voice transmission. I've already reached the peak of the advanced stage of the golden core stage. What's there to be surprised about? Have you gone back? Chen Shui asked with a seemingly indifferent voice transmission. Yes. The matter is far more complicated than you and I imagined. I hope that you don't blame Father, at least before you know the truth. Father didn't even know of your existence. Even what? Father originally thought that he and your mother had never done the deed of husband and wife. How is that possible? Chen Shui was slightly surprised. I also thought that it was impossible. But when Father heard me mention you, he said it himself in shock. We don't know the specific situation. Father didn't tell me and didn't let me get involved. I can understand your feelings, but please trust my intuition. There's definitely an extremely great secret between Father, your mother, and my mother. I believe that Father can handle it well. What we have to do is just wait. Chen Hao said. Mother has waited for over 100 years. How long do we have to wait? Wait until her lifespan is exhausted? Your mother has at least 200 years of lifespan, right? What about my mother? Only 100 years. Do you know what happened between them? How much do you know? Your mother has bitterly searched for over 100 years. My mother, at least from as long as I can remember, has never eaten a full meal. Father is a cripple. What's laughable is that because of me, he was beaten into a cripple by a bully in a small town who can't even be considered a cultivator. I simply can't understand all of this. I also can't understand. You also can't understand? Hiss. Just as Chen Hao and Chen Shui were arguing with each other through voice transmission, a powerful aura suddenly came from the horizon and interrupted the two's conversation. Today is the last chapter. Blushing with shame, there's really no other way. When I return to Kunming, I'll start to repay the debt. No matter how much I owe, I'll repay it. I'll cover my face and escape. To be continued. If you like this work, I welcome you to come to Chidian. Chapter 271. Yuan Gates Chu Qingtian. Sky Sword Sex Guxing. Too powerful. Just this aura alone is enough to make me unable to resist. The four top geniuses are too powerful, of course. Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, and Gu Xing are the three most monstrous geniuses of the top 10 sections. Although Xia Yuyu has surpassed them, it is only in terms of cultivation level. If nothing goes wrong, they will definitely trigger heaven's punishment and step into the incarnation realm. With their accumulation, they will not be in any danger after passing the heaven's punishment. I just don't know who will rank higher in this test. It will definitely be Chu Qing'an. A month ago, Chu Qingtian killed a peak early incarnation realm demonic cultivator. His combat power is unfathomable. It is said that he will be the commander of the Eastern Continent for this trial in the Sky City. Senior brother, what does this commander mean? When I saw the information, I was very confused. Are we going to be restricted when we enter? This is a precious place for training. It is definitely impossible to restrict them completely. The main goal is to unite against the outside world. I also heard from the Great Elder that the Sky City opens once every 100 years. In fact, it is a clash between the geniuses of the Eastern Continent, Western Continent, and Southern Sea Islands. Other than our sect disciples, there are also many rogue cultivators and demonic cultivators. The competition is very intense, not only within the Eastern Continent, but also with the Western Continent and Southern Sea Islands. Therefore, in the past few hundred years, it has become a tradition. Every time the Sky City opens, the top 10 rank 9 sects of the Eastern Continent will choose the strongest commander in advance. Once a group conflict occurs, we must unite against the outside world. Wu Ruochen, you are early. We agreed that the three of us will meet up, but you came alone. It seems that you are not convinced by me as the commander? Chu Qingtian and Gu Xing obviously came together. While they were still in the void, their eyes swept across the thousands of cultivators and locked onto Wu Ruochen in the crowd. His voice was not loud, but it was filled with a natural arrogance. It floated clearly into everyone's ears, and it was full of hostility. Convinced by you? Ridiculous. You are just the commander appointed by the top 10 sections. Everything depends on your strength. What right do you have to convince me? When the Sky City appears, I will defeat you in the Pagoda Tablet ranking. During the intersect competition, I will completely defeat you. Ha, you are overestimating yourself. I, Chu Qingnan, will let you know that I am worthy of my title as a commander. During the intersect competition, I will convince you even more. We'll see. Wu Ruochen said proudly. Disdain flickered in Chu Qingtian's eyes. He no longer paid attention to Wu Ruochen and swept his gaze across the crowd. A powerful pressure was released as he said, I'm Chu Qingtian from the Yuan Gate. I believe that most people here should know who I am. I won't waste any more words. This time I, Chu Qingtian, am indebted to the Immortal Alliance for thinking highly of me and being appointed as the commander. Naturally, I have to consider the honor of the Eastern continent. No matter who obtained the qualifications to enter, they would have to unite against the outside world. Once a large-scale conflict breaks out, I hope you won't shrink back. That will only weaken our strength. When Sky City appears and the qualified disciples are confirmed, they can come to me to receive a communication talisman. If you encounter a valuable treasure that you can't get your hands on, you can contact me. I'll choose to inform others to help you. I, Chu Qingtian, will make sure that you're satisfied with the distribution of benefits. Especially Golden Core disciples. Obtaining the right to enter only proves that you have great potential, not that you are strong. To put it bluntly, you will only be trampled upon if you go in. Don't lose your life for profit. Did you hear that? Chen Shui sent a voice transmission to Chen Hao. I have more or less entered the nascent soul realm. Your late-stage Golden Core realm is too low. There are 500 to 600 peak-stage nascent soul realm cultivators here. There are 3,000 above the nascent soul realm. The rest are basically at the peak of the late-stage Golden Core realm and half-step nascent soul realm. After you go in, you have to be careful. You won't be a match for any late-stage nascent soul realm cultivator. Don't lose your life for treasures. My goal is to gain experience. As long as I don't snatch treasures, it won't be a big problem. As for you, even if you don't snatch treasures, I'm afraid you will be in a lot of trouble. Chen Hao looked at Chen Shui and said. Chen Hao knew that although those with great potential could enter the Mirage Desert, the most suitable ones were those at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul realm. After all, they would enter the same space. Even if a Golden Core realm cultivator ranked high in the test and could enter, they would only be trampled upon by those nascent soul realm cultivators. No matter how strong Chen Hao was, he couldn't change this fact. The only thing he could do was to keep a low profile and not fight for treasures. This was also the reason why there were more nascent soul realm cultivators than Golden Core realm cultivators. Furthermore, the Golden Core realm cultivators who came here basically came with the core disciples of the sect. I don't want anyone to see me. Even Chu Qingtian and the rest can forget about seeing me. Alright, let's cultivate and adjust ourselves to the best state. The city in the sky should appear soon. Don't hide during the test. Although the ranking isn't a symbol of one's strength, it is a symbol of one's luck. The higher the ranking, the better the region you will be transported to. Even if you just cultivate there, you will gain a lot. Chen Shui said. Psst. On the second day, at sunset, the sandstorm seal hundreds of miles away suddenly shone with a resplendent 7-colored light. An ancient and mysterious aura instantly spread out and woke up the cultivators who were sitting cross-legged. The seal is about to disappear. Phew! I must go in. Even if I don't gain anything, as long as I can enter, it will be an honor. It's time for the test. Although I am at the late-stage Golden Core realm, this is a test of my potential. I will definitely not be weaker than them. The disciples who did not have absolute confidence in entering gritted their teeth. Even the rank 9 sects did not have such a mysterious test to test one's potential. They could only judge a disciple's potential subjectively and could not measure it specifically. However, the City in the Skies test could. There were close to 10,000 cultivators present. Basically, they were all super geniuses from rank 8 sects and above. There were very few lone cultivators like Qin Shui. Those from rank 3 sects like Qin Hao were even rarer. Even if they were ranked 1,000, it would definitely be an honor. There were a total of 3 entrances to the City in the Sky. The Eastern Mainland, the Western Mainland, and the South Sea Islands each had one. The number of cultivators gathered at the other 2 entrances was no less than that of the Eastern Mainland. It was equivalent to 1 in 10. Boom. After the 7-colored light lasted for half a minute, the terrifying sandstorm seal finally exploded and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Then, a mirage-like golden city appeared before everyone's eyes from afar. It emitted a grand, vast, and ancient aura. It was like the legendary Heavenly Palace, causing everyone to reveal excited expressions. At the same time, 307-colored light pillars instantly pierced through the void and split into 3 directions. There were 100 pillars in each direction and they poured down from the city in the sky. 100 identical blue towers appeared 100 miles away from Qin Hao and the rest. Each tower had 10 floors and exuded a mysterious aura. There were thunderous electric currents surrounding it that made crackling sounds from time to time. There was a huge silver tower tablet standing above the 100 palaces. Hiss, 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 hiss. Just when everyone was still immersed in shock, the 100 testing towers suddenly released a mysterious light curtain that covered a radius of hundreds of miles and all the cultivators were within it. 100 figures involuntarily rose into the sky and flew to the front of the 10 testing towers. The test had officially begun. Azure Valley Disciple, Mu Tinghai. Heaven-Piercing Sect Disciple, Yang Yen. Ling Tian Sect Disciple, Duan Yufei. Sectless Cultivator, Bai Lian. As the 100 disciples reported their identities one by one, 100 silver lights flashed from the silver tower steel and entered the glabella of the 100 disciples. One by one, they took a deep breath and stepped into the testing tower with an excited and solemn expression to begin the test. How long will this test take? 100 people at a time and 10,000 people in total. I'm afraid it won't end in a few days. Chen Hao looked at Qin Shui and said, "Didn't you know the details before you came?" "No. I only read about it in the sect's information. I don't know the details," Qin Hao said. 100 people will be tested each time. The test time varies. Those with poor potential will be eliminated in 2 to 3 minutes, while those with high potential will be eliminated for a longer time. However, it won't be more than 10 minutes. This is because the testing tower has a 1-minute time limit for each floor. According to past experience, those who can reach the 7th floor have the hope of obtaining the qualification to enter. The 8th floor is basically a piece of cake. Those who can reach the 10th floor and come out from the top of the tower are definitely true geniuses. There are basically a few people from the Eastern Continent, Western Continent, and Southern Sea Archipelago who can do it every time. However, the total number is not more than 20. Qin Shui said. After a slight pause, she continued, "This testing tower tests one's temperament, will, comprehension, combat talent, and physical talent. There are 5 aspects. Therefore, it places more emphasis on potential rather than strength. Otherwise, with so many people at the peak of the mastery nascent soul stage, we won't be qualified at all. Someone's coming out." After Qin Shui and Chen Hao spoke for a while, a cultivator was ejected from the 2nd floor's exit. It was obvious that he did not even have the potential to step into the 3rd floor. "Ha! Zhao Chenfeng, with your potential, you should just kill yourself. You can't even reach the 3rd floor and you still have the nerve to come out and embarrass yourself. Humph! Talk to me when you can reach the 3rd floor. I'm at least at the 2nd floor and I'll pass in the last breath. It's good enough that you can reach the 2nd floor. If my ranking is higher than yours, will you kneel down and apologize to me?" "Sure. If your ranking is lower than mine, kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times. The ejected Zhao Chenfeng was a rogue cultivator at the peak of the late stage of the nascent soul realm. His strength was definitely strong. However, even he did not expect that he would be so embarrassing. What was even more embarrassing was that his sworn enemy actually looked down on him in public. This made him extremely embarrassed and angry. Soon, more disciples were ejected. In less than 6 minutes, at least 80 people were ejected from the 5th floor. Of the remaining 20 people, more than 10 were ejected from the 7th floor. When they reached the 8th floor, only 4 people were left. Duan Yufei was one of them. Including today, I owe 9 chapters. I'm really sorry. It will probably return to normal around the 17th. At that time, Wu Shan will try his best to repay the debt. For the next few days, please bear with it. I suggest that you don't wait for the next chapter and rest for the time being. Wu Shan is also a reader and understands how painful this kind of update is. But there's really no other way. I'm extremely sorry. Chapter 272. 10th level. Amazing. Too amazing. As expected of a super genius from a grade 9 sect. How can Duan Yufei be so amazing? He was only ranked 9th among the inner court disciples in the Ling Tian sect. Now that he has just stepped into the nascent soul stage, could it be that he can still ascend to the top of the tower? In less than 9 minutes, the other 3 disciples were ejected one after another, while Duan Yufei stepped into the 10th level amidst the crowd's shocked voices. As a super genius ranked 9th among the inner court disciples of the grade 9 sect, Ling Tian sect, Duan Yufei's reputation in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world was not as famous as Chu Qingtian, Wu Ruochen, Gu Xing, and Xia Yuyu, who were in the first column, but he was still one of the top in the second column. Even if the close to 10,000 disciples present did not know who he was, they all knew his name. However, according to the previous evaluations, Duan Yufei could at most reach the 9th level. However, he had actually stepped into the 10th level now. This kind of potential was absolutely shocking. In the crowd, Xia Lanlan's expression was obviously unusually excited. Her beautiful face was flushed with excitement, and she seemed to be even more excited than herself ascending to the 10th level. She clenched her fists tightly and prayed for Duan Yufei. However, it only lasted for 5 seconds before a ray of light appeared, and Duan Yufei was ejected from the 10th level amidst the crowd's exclamations. At the same time, the Silver Tower monument shone with a dazzling light, and the ranking of the first batch of 100 disciples appeared before everyone's eyes. Duan Yufei, who had broken his wings on the 10th level, was at the top of the list. The 10th level is actually so amazing, no wonder there are only a few who can pass every time. The instant Duan Yufei was ejected, although his essence, energy, and spirit were completely replenished by the miraculous energy, he was covered in cold sweat. He clenched his teeth and relied on his extraordinary talent to successfully pass the 9th level, giving him incomparable confidence. Originally, he thought that according to the increasing pressure of each level, he would have a 50% chance of successfully ascending to the top of the 10th level. However, what he did not expect was that the strength of the 10th level completely exceeded his imagination. He did not persist for 5 seconds and was instantly killed, without any results. Subsequently, another 100 people entered the testing tower at the same time. No one knew which batch they were in. There was no pattern to the selection of the testing tower. The location and stage were uncertain, so they could only wait patiently. All of them knew that they might be the next one, but they couldn't calm down and adjust their breathing. Their minds were stretched taut as they paid attention to the disciples entering the pagoda monument. The disciples who failed on the 7th floor were the most nervous. According to their experience, at least half of the disciples who failed on the 7th floor would not be able to enter the top 1,000. Moreover, it wasn't based on the length of time one could last on the 7th floor, but rather the results obtained. If no one else said anything, they could only wait for the ranking on the pagoda stele. On the first level, you'll meet an opponent who's as strong as you. The pressure, aura, and combat power were extremely similar to his own. The only thing missing was flexibility. On the second level, there would be 2. Furthermore, the 2 of them work together seamlessly. Their battle prowess is at least 3 times that of yours. You have to find their weakness in the shortest amount of time and destroy it. Without sufficient combat talent and experience, it was impossible to achieve such a feat. The 3rd floor becomes 4, the 4th floor becomes 8, and so on. When you reach the 10th floor, you will have 500 or 2 opponents. Chen Shui said. It can't be? 500 or 2 opponents with the same strength as him. And it's perfectly coordinated? Chen Hao said in surprise. How is this possible? If there wasn't a time limit, there would still be hope. But with only 1 minute, how can he kill them all? It's not for you to kill them, it's for you to break through. When you enter, you will naturally know what to do. If you can only pass by killing all of them, not to mention the 10th floor, even the 2nd and 3rd floor, there aren't many who can complete it in 1 minute. What we need to do is to break through the opponent's blockade and walk to the entrance of the next floor. Then, we will have successfully passed the floor. Other than facing opponents with the same strength as us, the closer we are to the entrance of the next floor, the greater the pressure we will have to endure and the stronger the mental attack will be. Therefore, it's not enough to have a high comprehension ability and a strong innate talent. Without sufficient temperament and willpower, it's also difficult to pass. You don't have to worry too much. The 2 of us definitely won't have a problem getting the qualifications. It's just a matter of what ranking we can get. Gu Xing is going. Just as Chen Shui and Chen Hao were watching and talking, the 5th batch of disciples who entered became the focus of everyone's attention. The super genius of the floating mist sect, Gu Xing. With his talent and potential, it shouldn't be a problem for him to reach the top. Chen Shui said softly, in the history of the Eastern continent, the average number of people who reach the top is around 5. As one of the most dazzling geniuses of the Eastern continent, he, Chu Qingtian, and Wu Ruochen will definitely reach the top. It's just a matter of whose results are better. They've all reached the top. How do we differentiate the results? According to the time they reached the top and their performance? Chen Hao asked. After watching a few matches, Chen Hao had already discovered that although the time difference between all the disciples passing through each level was very small, there was still a slight difference. For example, Duan Yufei had reached the 10th level when there was still more than 10 seconds and 9 minutes left. Furthermore, he had entered the 9th floor a few seconds earlier than the other 3 disciples who had entered the 9th floor. The most basic measurement is the number of floors. Within the same level, the results obtained were based on one's performance within the level. The time isn't accurate. However, if it's reaching the top, the faster the time, the better the performance, Chen Shui said. What a fast speed. That's amazing. This Gu Xing has always kept a low profile. I heard that other than the people from his sect, nobody has ever heard him speak. He basically doesn't interact with others, let alone get into a conflict. If he wasn't ranked first in his sect, I'm afraid the Eastern continent wouldn't even know how powerful he is. However, the strength, that's amazing. He's already at the 6th floor. In less than 4 minutes, he's already surpassed the others by 2 floors. This speed is a few times faster than Duan Yufei from the Ling Tian sect. Such speed means that he's very relaxed. He definitely has no problem reaching the top. Who knows, he might even be ranked first in the Eastern continent. When Gu Xing took the lead and made the testing tower shine all the way up, close to 10,000 cultivators' eyes were attracted to him. All of them were shocked. Even Chu Qingtian and Wu Ruochen's eyes shone with a fierce and powerful battle intent. In their eyes, there was no doubt that the low-profile and quiet Gu Xing was their opponent. The test in the Sky City this time was a confrontation before the inter-sect competition. Although it was not the final battle, for geniuses like them, they would never allow themselves to fail at any time, any place, or anything. He's reached the top. As the crowd exclaimed in shock, Gu Xing, whose expression did not change at all, appeared proudly at the top of the testing tower. He stepped on a 7-colored waterfall that was different from the silver light that was ejected and returned to the crowd under the admiration and envy of the crowd. The silver tower tablet shone with a dazzling light. Gu Xing's name replaced Duan Yufei and rose to the top. Moreover, unlike the other names, his name was 7-colored. Only the name that reached the top would be 7-colored. 7 minutes. This Gu Xing only used 7 minutes to reach the top. This result can be ranked in the top 30 among the genius disciples in the past. Countless shocked voices erupted from the crowd. 7 minutes. Chu Qingtian will definitely surpass this number. Chu Qingtian stared at Gu Xing, who came with him, and said confidently in his heart. Although Gu Xing did not directly express his unwillingness to accept him as the commander like Wu Ruochen, the cold Gu Xing did not say a word along the way. Chu Qingtian knew in his heart whether he was convinced or not. Wu Ruochen also felt the pressure, but this pressure made his battle intent even higher. On average, it took about 6 minutes for each batch. After 20 batches, Gu Xing's name was still not surpassed by anyone. Some of the super geniuses of the 9th rank sects had reached the 10th level. There was also a genius from the 8th rank sect who reached the 10th level. However, he did not pass, but his result was better than Duan Yufei's. Duan Yufei slipped from 1st place to 7th place. There were a few who reached the 10th level, but like Duan Yufei, they were ejected instantly. Their ranking was still lower than Duan Yufei's. Overall, with Duan Yufei's reputation, this result was quite good. Many of the 9th rank sects who were more famous than him had been defeated by him. Xia Lanlan also completed the test and ended at the 9th level. Her ranking was at the top of all the people who had broken their wings at the 9th level. She was second only to the dozen people who had reached the 10th level and above. The 26th batch. Rogue cultivator, Chen Shui. Chen Shui, who was chatting with Chen Hao, was brought to a testing tower by a beam of light. She quickly gathered her thoughts and reported her name. Chen Shui. Her name is Chen Shui. What a beautiful girl. How come I have never heard of such a person before? She's just a rogue cultivator. What's there to be proud of? She didn't even give me face when I invited her. I want to see how many levels she can reach. The moment Chen Shui appeared, she, who was wearing a blue dress and had a graceful figure, attracted the attention of countless people. Even though she was wearing a veil, it could not hide her beautiful face. It had to be said that a real beauty would be the center of attention no matter where she went, regardless of strength or status. There was a huge difference between this and a man. A man, no matter how handsome he was, if he did not have the strength and status to match it, he would at most be called a pretty boy or an embroidered pillow. Not many people would really pay attention to him. But a woman was different. Even if she was useless, as long as she was beautiful, she could cause disputes. The power of a femme fatale was absolutely terrifying. How many levels can she reach? The 10th level or the top? When Chen Shui stepped into the 1st level, Chen Hao's deep black eyes shone with a bright light. He thought to himself with some anticipation. Although they were not related by blood, Chen Shui was still his elder sister. Moreover, Chen Hao also knew that as the disciple of the nameless old man, Chen Shui was an anomaly who was only born after being pregnant for more than 100 years. Her talent was definitely not as simple as it seemed. Even Chen Hao was not sure if he was stronger than her. It was impossible not to look forward to it. Chapter 273. Chen Shui is not simple. Duan Yufei could not help but exclaim. It had not even been 5 minutes since Chen Shui stepped into the testing tower. However, what shocked everyone was that the 6th floor of the testing tower lit up first. Although the final result was not out yet, her speed was not much inferior to Gu Xing's. What's not simple about it? So what if she reached the top? No matter how powerful she is, she can't beat Yu. No matter what. Xia Lanlan stared at Chen Shui's testing tower and said with hostility. Duan Yufei smiled and did not say anything else. He agreed with Xia Lanlan, but he was sure that even if Chen Shui was not as powerful as Xia Yu, the difference was limited. Otherwise, she would not have advanced so quickly. The last time he saw Chen Shui, she was only at the peak of the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm. Furthermore, her cultivation was unstable and far from the half-step nascent soul realm. However, she was now at the initial stage of the nascent soul realm. How long had it been? No one dared to trigger the heavenly punishment casually. Even the super geniuses of the rank 9 sects did not dare to be careless. Only when one's mental state was perfect and had great confidence would they dare to trigger the heavenly punishment. However, Chen Shui did it so quickly, Duan Yufei did not know if her foundation was stable or not. However, being able to trigger the heavenly punishment in such a short time and successfully pass it was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. 8 minutes. Chen Shui became the second disciple to successfully reach the top. Furthermore, she only used 8 minutes and was second only to Gu Xing. With such potential, Chen Shui had truly become the focus of everyone's attention. Even some of the super geniuses of the rank 9 sects looked at Chen Shui with astonishment. Many people thought of Chen Shui's identity as a rogue cultivator. Listen up, Chen Shui is only in her early 20s and has already reached the nascent soul realm. Furthermore, she has such potential. Even in our Yuan Gate, she is considered a top genius. After stepping into the city in the sky, if you meet her, invite her to join our Yuan Gate. Let her enjoy the treatment of a core disciple and tell her that I said so. Do you understand? Yes, senior brother. The dozens of Yuan Gate disciples replied at the same time when they heard Chu Qingtian's message. Senior brother, what if she doesn't agree? Before you came, I invited her to form a team but was rejected. Do I need to say that? Although his potential is high, he is only at the early nascent soul stage. After you come out, leave her to me. Remember, just capture her. Don't touch her. Chu Qingtian's lips curled up slightly, and an evil glint flashed in his eyes. Yes, everyone was slightly taken aback and hurriedly responded. They knew what kind of person Chu Qingtian was. They didn't dare to be dissatisfied with Chu Qingtian's overbearingness. Even the disciples who had thoughts about Chen Shui could only put away these thoughts. Chu Qingtian was the future sect master of the Yuan Gate. Who would dare to offend him? Very good, very good. A rogue cultivator at the early nascent soul stage. With such potential and such beauty, she is simply a perfect Taoist companion for me. While Chen Hao was briefing the Yuan Gate disciples, the floating mist sect's half-step incarnation stage super genius, Gu He, stared at Chen Shui, who had drifted to Chen Hao's side, with bright eyes as he thought to himself. Soon, he sent a message to all the disciples of the floating mist sect other than Gu Xing. There were many similar situations like Yuan Gate and floating mist sect. Chen Shui would never have thought that her shocking performance would directly push her to the heart of the struggle. Of course, even if she knew, she would still do it and wouldn't care at all. The test continued. The rankings on the Silver Pagoda Monument were constantly changing. What shocked everyone was that the number of disciples who managed to reach the top of the Pagoda Monument this time had far exceeded the previous times. When the number of disciples reached 6,000, another 8 disciples had reached the top. Out of these 8 people, 6 of them were from the top 10 grade 9 sects, including Gu He. 2 of them were super geniuses from grade 8 sects. However, Gu Xing and Chen Shui's first and second positions were still unshakable. This situation continued until Wu Ruochen from the Sky Sword sect appeared. However, he only surpassed Chen Shui by a small margin and still couldn't shake Gu Xing's position. This made Wu Ruochen's expression very ugly. When the 70th round began, it was finally Chu Qingtian's turn. It's finally my turn. Ha! When the light beam locked onto Chu Qingtian said proudly. His sharp gaze was filled with disdain as he looked at Wu Ruochen. Finally, his gaze landed on Gu Xing provocatively. The first place can only belong to me, Chu Qingtian. It will still be the first place during the intersect competition. Chu Qingtian's arrogant voice resounded throughout the area. With a whoosh, he stepped into the testing tower. I have cultivated the heavenly domination technique to the greater completion realm. Who can stop me? The first place will definitely be mine. So what if it takes 7 minutes? Chu Qingtian took a deep breath and thought to himself as he stepped into the testing tower. So fast. Impressive. As expected of Chu Qingtian. I'm afraid Gu Xing won't be able to keep his first place. In just 3 minutes, close to 10,000 disciples widened their eyes in shock. Although many people were unhappy with Chu Qingtian's arrogance, They couldn't help but admire Chu Qingtian's strength. Just like the Yuan sect's dominance, Chu Qingtian passed through the levels with irresistible force. In just 3 minutes, he reached the 5th level. In 3.5 minutes, he reached the 6th level. This speed was more than 10 seconds faster than Gu Xing. Impossible. How can Chu Qingtian be so fast? Wu Ruochen clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. Although the results weren't out yet, Chu Qingtian would definitely be the first. He could tolerate losing to Gu Xing. However, he couldn't tolerate losing to Chu Qingtian. The reason was simple. It was because of Xia Yuyu. His and Chu Qingtian's sects had already expressed their intentions to the Ling Tian sect by marriage. Although Xia Lingfeng had temporarily rejected the marriage because of Xia Yuyu's cultivation, they both knew that they were each other's biggest competitors. Could it be that his heavenly domination technique has been cultivated to the greater completion realm? Gu Xing and Wu Ruochen thought to themselves at the same time. The heavenly domination technique was the Yuan sect's ultimate earth rank unique technique. Only disciples who were qualified to become the next sect leader could cultivate it. Any disciple who cultivated this technique would possess an aura of supremacy. When it was cultivated to the greater completion realm, its power would be even more terrifying. It was the most powerful unique technique that could be cultivated before the primordial soul stage. Amazing! I'm afraid Chu Qingtian will reach the top in about 6 minutes. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao and said softly, "My mother said that there would be countless super geniuses in the world when the great era arrives." It's true. The number of people who reached the top this year and the time it took to reach the top has far surpassed the previous years. I'm afraid Chu Qingtian will break the previous records. This is just the eastern mainland. The western mainland and the southern sea islands might be even stronger than us. Even if I reach the peak of the advanced nascent soul stage, I'll only gain battle experience. At most, I'll be able to reach Gu Xing's level. Unless I can raise my carving mental cultivation method to the 4th stage. Why? Are you confident that you can surpass him? Chen Shui couldn't help but ask when she saw Chen Hao's expression. I'll know after I try, Chen Hao said noncommittally. However, the confidence in his eyes made Chen Shui understand that Chen Hao wasn't as simple as he made himself out to be. However, although Chen Shui believed that Chen Hao's insane talent would allow him to reach the top, it would be extremely difficult for him to surpass Chu Qingtian. She wasn't even sure if he could surpass her. After all, although this was a test of potential, the higher one's cultivation was, the more experience one had. Relatively speaking, one's comprehension would also increase. Naturally, one would be able to pass the test faster. However, Chen Hao's gaze made Chen Shui feel a sense of anticipation. It seemed that every time she thought she had seen him clearly, he would exceed her expectations. Would it be the same this time? Haha! After 6 minutes, Chu Qingtian's arrogant laughter could be heard from the top of the testing tower. Some of the more powerful disciples had reached the top before they could even complete the test. They had surpassed Gu Xing, who was ranked first, and reached the top with absolute superiority. In terms of time, Chu Qingtian was undeniably the first. This was indeed the case. When all the disciples had completed their tests, the silver tower tablet shone with the resplendent light. Chu Qingtian's name replaced Gu Xing's and became a high and mighty existence. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but when Chu Qingtian slowly flew towards the area where the Yuan Gate disciples were located, the corners of his mouth curled into an arrogant smile. His gaze paused on Chen Shui's face for a moment. When the number of disciples had reached 9,000, the number of people who reached the top increased to 15 as the test drew to a close. Chu Qingtian was ranked first, Gu Xing was ranked second, Wu Ruochen was ranked third, and Chen Shui was ranked fourth. No one else could shake their positions. At this moment, under Chen Shui's expectant gaze, it was finally Chen Hao's turn. She wasn't excited at all when she was taking her own test. Instead, it was Chen Hao's test that made her heart beat faster. Could Chen Hao create another miracle? TSK, this kid is finally going up. Brothers, take a guess. Which level will he reach? When Chen Hao flew towards the testing tower, the cultivators standing near Chen Hao and Chen Shui began to discuss without restraint. Originally, Although Chen Hao had killed Fan Fong when he was in the advanced nascent soul stage, it was nothing to these super geniuses. At most, they would take a few more glances. However, Chen Shui's intimacy with Chen Hao made them extremely jealous. At this moment, how could they not belittle her? It didn't matter whether they got it or not. At least, they couldn't let a fresh flower be stuck in cow dung. Level 5 at most. This kind of genius is just a low-ranking sex genius. If he were in our sect, he wouldn't even be worth a fart. He's only a few streets away from me. Are you kidding? I've only reached level 5. How can he compare to me? I think he'll be eliminated at level 4. He's just a super genius from a third-rank sect. How dare he come here to participate? Unfortunately, this isn't something that can be accomplished with courage alone. It's really possible. Look, many people have already reached level 2, but this guy is still on level 1. According to the odds, I'm afraid he'll be the first to be eliminated. Chen Shui frowned slightly. On one hand, the crowd was deliberately mocking Chen Hao. On the other hand, what really made Chen Shui frown was that Chen Hao had been on level 1 for too long. Just like what those people had said, with this kind of performance, he would probably be the first to be eliminated. What was going on? I'll update 1 chapter today. I owe 15 chapters. I apologize again. After the 17th, I'll start to repay the debt. I really can't do anything these few days. During the 10 days in Chengdu, Wushan couldn't go out to write. My daughter only pestered me. She didn't even want her mother anymore. Wushan was miserable. I returned to Kunming yesterday. Tomorrow, I'll go to Nanjing to attend the publishing house's annual meeting. I'll probably return to Kunming on the 17th. These few days, without his daughter pestering him, Wushan tried to find time to write and maintain 1 chapter a day. When I return on the 17th, I'll settle the accounts and start to repay the debt. I hope everyone can bear with it for a while. I'm very sorry, I'll leave in shame. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 274. Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan were equally puzzled. Although they did not know Chen Hao as well as Chen Shui did, they still knew a little about him. He was only 18 years old and could kill Fan Fong, who was half a step away from the nascent soul stage when he was only in the advanced golden elixir stage. How could his potential be low? Although he might not be able to reach the top, it was normal for him to reach the 9th or 10th level. However, many disciples had already reached the 2nd level while Chen Hao was still on the 1st level. Judging by the time, it was very likely that he would be eliminated on the 4th or 5th level. The moment Chen Hao stepped into the testing tower, a 3,000-meter-long narrow passage appeared in front of him. At the same time, a mysterious and terrifying aura poured directly into Chen Hao's glabella. Chen Hao could clearly feel that this aura had locked onto his body. In an instant, a puppet with a metallic luster appeared in the middle of the passage. It did not have any aura of life, but it was emitting a terrifying aura. 3,000 meters. Under this pressure, even without the puppet blocking the way, it would take 10 seconds to fly across. Within 55 seconds, I have to pass through the puppet. Since this is a comprehensive test of one's state of mind, willpower, comprehension, combat talent, and physical talent, there must be a connection between the 10 levels. Chen Hao, who had gone through the 7th level of the 7 Stars Palace, was instantly sure after sensing the aura on the 1st level of the testing tower. The puppets that were added between each level of the testing tower must be a combination of formations and combat skills. Moreover, from what Chen Shui had told him, although the time taken to pass the test was one of the main factors in assessing one's potential, it was not the only factor. Moreover, the people who had just taken the test had also confirmed this point. Among the 15 people who had reached the top, there were those who had taken longer to reach the top. Although there was not much difference in the time taken, at least it showed that time was not the only factor. Not daring to waste any time, Chen Hao rushed towards the puppet in the middle of the tunnel like a bolt of lightning. When he was still 300 meters away, Chen Hao unsheathed his sword and slashed out, using only 60% of his strength. He was very clear that this puppet's strength and essence force were on par with his. The only difference was in absolute arts and adaptability. With Chen Hao's talent, he could definitely defeat him in a few moves, but Chen Hao was not in a hurry to do so. Sharpening a knife won't delay the work of cutting firewood. On the first floor, there was only one puppet, which was undoubtedly the easiest way for Chen Hao to understand the characteristics of the puppet's battle formation. Therefore, he had to force the puppets to use all of their moves because these moves would be a part of the puppet's combined moves in the later levels. 50 seconds later, the puppet began to repeat the first move of its mysterious but obviously incomplete moves. When it reached the first move, Chen Hao suddenly pushed the first move of the 7 Stars sword art to the limit and easily pierced through the puppet's head. He rushed to the second floor as fast as he could, and in about 59 seconds he barely passed the second floor. Second floor, third floor, fourth floor, 2 people, 4 people, 8 people. Chen Hao persevered until the last second to pass and killed all of them. Among the 100 testers, more than 10 were eliminated on the 4th floor. Apart from those people, Chen Hao was the last to enter the 5th floor. No way he can enter the 5th floor like this? It's similar to what I expected. The 5th floor is his limit. He'll definitely be eliminated on this floor. He's only 1 second away every time. He won't be so lucky every time. Chen Shui, Duan Yufei, and Xia Lanlan were worried for Chen Hao every time he entered the next floor at the last second. However, after 4 consecutive times, the 3 of them were no longer nervous, but expectant. The 3 of them more or less understood Chen Hao. They were originally very surprised by Chen Hao's performance, but now they understood that Chen Hao was definitely doing it on purpose. Otherwise, it would be impossible for there to be a 1-second difference every time. The 3 of them thought that Chen Hao was hiding his strength, but they didn't know the real reason why Chen Hao slowed down. Another 59 seconds later, the 5th floor, 16 puppets were all killed again. Chen Hao stepped into the 6th floor. 32 people. The moment he stepped in, Chen Hao's eyes shone brightly. He felt the pressure doubled again. His state of mind was clear and there was no fear at all. This set of formation combination combat skills definitely surpasses the 7-star sword formation by more than a few times. The number of people on each floor is doubled. It's impossible to kill all of them. The only way is to use the fastest speed to find the weakness of their cooperation. This must be the test of comprehension. Being able to find the weakness quickly and think of the best way to deal with it is the test of combat strength. Mind, willpower, and physical talent are all tests at all times. Chen Hao's brain was calculating rapidly. The pressure on each floor increased exponentially. Moreover, the longer he stayed, the greater the impact of the invisible pressure on his mind. It was definitely the greatest test of one's state of mind and willpower. The strength of the attacks on each battle was a test of one's physical talent. If one's combat strength was outstanding, they could definitely pass through faster. However, by doing so, the pressure on one's state of mind and willpower would be smaller, and it wouldn't be a real test. I'll kill as many as I can. I'll persist for as long as I can. This test is definitely not a test of time to measure one's results. Being fast is just a result of having a strong combat strength. It can't be. How is this possible? The 10th floor. This Chen Hao actually reached the 9th floor. He passed every floor at the last second. Could it be that he did it on purpose? Amazing! I really didn't expect this Chen Hao to be able to wait until the 10th floor. If he intentionally passed the first 9 floors at the last second, he definitely wouldn't have a problem reaching the top. When Chen Hao struggled and dangerously reached the 10th floor at the last second, everyone was shocked. This was because Chen Hao was the only one who was still taking the test. The others, including the super geniuses who had reached the 10th floor, had already finished their tests. At this moment, those fellows near Chen Shui that ridiculed and looked down upon Chen Hao had shut their mouths since a long time ago. There was utterly no need for anyone to counterattack the words from before, and it was like they were slapping their own mouths, so how could they have the face to say it? They were only shocked. Especially when they thought that Chen Hao might have purposely entered the next floor at the last second, they were so shocked and ashamed that they wanted to hide themselves. Time passed second by second. Chu Qingtian, Gu Xing, and the rest were all paying attention to the testing tower that Chen Hao was in. They didn't know how Chen Hao did it every time at the last second. They also didn't know why Chen Hao did it. However, everyone, including Chu Qingtian, felt threatened. This was because, as super geniuses, they naturally knew that although the time taken to pass the testing tower could roughly determine the results of the test, it wasn't really determined by time. When they were in the tower, they had all raised their fighting power to the maximum and used their fastest speed to pass the test. This was because no one could withstand the increasingly terrifying pressure for too long. It had a huge impact on their bodies. The longer they stayed in the tower, the more their mental state would be affected. Naturally, the power they could unleash would be reduced. Who dared to stay in the tower for too long? Yufei, do you think? He can reach the top? Xia Lanlan's face was filled with anticipation and excitement as she asked softly. He should be able to. Once he reaches the top, his ranking should be very, very high. I really didn't expect Chen Hao's potential to be so great. Even if he can't reach the top, his results will still be very high. The only thing he lacks is his fighting talent. No, to be exact, he lacks a high-level secret art. A rank 3 sect is really burying his potential? When Chen Hao stepped into the 10th level, Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei both spoke softly. The standard to measure one's fighting talent, other than one's ability to adapt, was more important to look at one's own secret art. Being able to cultivate a powerful secret art would definitely increase one's fighting power exponentially. The higher one's fighting power was, the stronger his fighting talent. This was undeniable. However, Chen Hao was only a rank 3 sect. How many powerful secret arts could he have? In Duan Yufei's opinion, Chen Hao's 7-star finger sword was probably his strongest secret art. In this aspect, he couldn't be compared to Chu Qingtian and the rest. He's not simple. At least in terms of temperament and willpower, I can't compare to him. When Chen Hao stepped into the 10th level for 50 seconds, he stared at the lone star in the testing tower. His eyes shone brightly as he thought to himself. Chen Hao spat out another mouthful of blood. Last 10 seconds. If I can't find the weakness, I can only force my way through. Chen Hao's figure was as fast as lightning as he shuttled through the joint attacks of the 512 puppets. He felt the pressure that was as heavy as mountains and seas. Every attack caused his body and mind to suffer great pain. Even though his temperament was as firm as a rock, he was still greatly affected. After 50 seconds, even with his comprehension, he couldn't find the puppet's weakness. This joint formation was definitely several times stronger than the 7-star finger sword formation. It was almost perfect. Fortunately, it wasn't the combined attacks of the 512 puppets. Otherwise, no matter how tough his body was, he would have been blasted into pieces. Nobody is perfect. The moon is full and there is no perfect existence in this world. It's the same for formations. There must be a weakness in this formation. Where is it? The immense pressure caused Chen Hao's brain to work at a terrifying speed. His soul consciousness, eyes, intuition were all activated to the extreme. However, he didn't find anything. Every part was perfect and flawless. 10 seconds. In reality, Chen Hao only had 5 seconds. In the remaining 5 seconds, he had to sprint to the finish line with all his strength. Otherwise, even if he broke through the blockade of the puppets, he wouldn't be able to reach the top. Because he would exceed the time limit. It's repeated. Connect. Just when there were only 7 seconds left and Chen Hao was prepared to use his strongest trump card, the platinum sky-piercing slash, to force his way through, his eyes lit up. He discovered the weakness of the 512 puppets. That was connecting. After the combination attack had circulated for an entire cycle, the moment it began to repeat, there was an insignificant pause. However, Chen Hao was able to catch this pause. Kill! The platinum sky-piercing slash that was already prepared was suddenly released. Chapter 275. The sharp sword light turned into a stream of light, like the Milky Way descending from the 9 heavens, and slashed at the weak point. Boom! With a single strike, the countless puppets were unable to react at all. In an instant, over 100 heads flew into the air. Chen Hao used the last of his strength to pass through the dense crowd of puppets and rushed to the finish line. Even though these puppets were no longer perfect after breaking the combined attack, and they were no longer a threat to Chen Hao was unable to continue killing them. This was because with Chen Hao's current strength, he could only use the Platinum Heaven-Splitting Slash 3 times at his peak condition. However, he did not have much energy left after all this time. He only had less than half of his energy left when he used this attack. Moreover, he did not have any time to waste. Otherwise, he would exceed the time limit. At the last second, the heavily injured and weak Chen Hao stepped into the exit that was shining with a bright white light. The moment his body was wrapped up, Chen Hao clearly felt that not only was his energy replenished, it had also surpassed his peak condition before he stepped into the tower. He reached the top. When Chen Hao appeared at the top of the tower in 59 seconds, the shock in everyone's hearts was indescribable. However, what shocked them even more was that Chen Hao's name appeared at the top of the silver tower. First place. He had surpassed the number 1 genius of the Yuan Gate, Chu Qingtian, and appeared in first place. Buzzing sounds of discussion filled with disbelief instantly resounded among the close to 10,000 cultivators. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the figure that floated in front of Chen Shui. At this moment, even though many people didn't want to admit it, their feelings had completely changed. The handsome Chen Hao and Chen Shui no longer felt like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung when they were together. There was only a perfect pair, a match made in heaven. He passed the test in 9 minutes and 50 seconds, and is actually in first place. Oh my god, is he really a genius from a third-grade sect? This is unbelievable. His ranking actually surpassed Chu Qingtian, who is only at the advanced golden core stage. I wonder what rank Chen Hao will get when the results of the Western Mainland and the Southern Sea Islands are out. He should be able to enter the top 10, right? Or maybe even better. No matter what, our Eastern continent's results this time will definitely be the best we've ever had. I'm really looking forward to it. No wonder that Chen Shui favors him so much. Both of them are first-rate super geniuses. They're practically a match made in heaven. He actually surpassed me. This was definitely not true potential. It was me who pursued speed too much. If I could slow down, how could he possibly surpass me? A tiny little advanced stage golden core realm cultivator wants to seize my karmic luck? He's simply courting death. What match made in heaven? Chen Shui is definitely going to be my concubine. Since that's the case, I'll just kill her. I want to see how a dead person is going to snatch my fortune. Chu Qingtian's gaze contained a trace of undetectable viciousness. He stared at Chen Hao, whom he had not paid any attention to, and thought to himself. Then, he gave another order to the disciples of the sect. At the very least, he couldn't kill Chen Hao in this place. This Chen Hao is actually so strong. Yu seems to be paying attention to him too. Since the Ling Tian sect has long valued him, his talent and age. Wu Ruochen's eyes flickered as he pondered in his heart. A moment later, he raised his eyebrows and said to himself, "No. If this brat is allowed to grow, he might become a threat to me. He's no less a threat than Chu Qingtong." Similarly, there were also some people who could not bear to see such a genius in a low-grade sect and wanted to kill Chen Hao out of jealousy. Of course, most of them were disciples who had fantasies about Chen Shui, the sectless cultivator. Although nobody showed it at this moment, the subtle hostility and killing intent made Chen Hao frown slightly. In the Ling Tian sect, apart from Duan Yufei and Xia Lanlan, the other super geniuses were shocked. At the same time, they deeply admired Xia Nantian and sect leader Xia Lingfeng for standing up for Chen Hao. You have to be careful. Chen Shui, who was close to Chen Hao, used her sharp soul perception to naturally sense the hostility and killing intent surging from the surroundings. While she was shocked by Chen Hao's talent, she reminded him through voice transmission. "Don't worry." Chen Hao said softly and did not say much. He had already expected this when he decided to fight for it without holding back. However, he did not expect it to be so serious. It was impossible to say that he did not feel pressured. He had no chance of winning against powerhouses above the mastery nascent soul stage. But if it was to save his life, he could still do it. In less than an hour, All the cultivators from the eastern mainland had finally completed the test. The disciples who were ranked within the top 1,000 were qualified to enter the Sky City to train. Disciples who are ranked within the top 1,000 can come and get your communication talisman. The Sky City should be opening soon. Hurry up. Chu Qingtian said proudly. Upon hearing Chu Qingtian's words, many disciples who were qualified rushed towards him. However, nearly half of the disciples did not move. This was especially so for the grade 9 sects and some powerful grade 8 sections. They did not have any intention of getting their talismans. The so-called leadership and unity was only a superficial formality. To the genius disciples, no one was willing to be under the leadership of others. His vision, hearing, and senses were temporarily deafened. Then he appeared in a boundless area of floating clouds, as if he was in the middle of a deep forest. The heaven and earth spirit chi was so dense that it shocked Chen Hao. There were many huge trees, and even the shortest one was hundreds of feet tall and dozens of feet wide. Other than that, there was also an endless amount of demonic beasts. Such dense space spirit chi. Glancing around, Chen Hao's gaze locked onto a sword-shaped plant that was stuck in the ground like a great sword. It was silver in color, shining with a faint metallic luster. If it were not for the fact that it was swaying in the wind, people might have mistaken it for a great sword. But what surprised Chen Hao the most was that this sword-shaped plant contained an extremely dense space spirit chi. Could it be the empty space spirit grass? Chen Hao thought about the introduction of spiritual items in the sect's information and said in surprise, "Not bad. It is indeed the sky spirit plant. Master, this sky city is indeed magical. No wonder you cultivators are fighting so hard to get in here. This sky spirit plant contains a lot of space spirit chi, which is very useful for learning the truth of the space element. Any one of them could be sold at the price of a low-rank spiritual item. There are hundreds of them here." With Chen Hao's permission, Ito Ta spread out his senses and said excitedly in Chen Hao's mind, "I have already touched a little bit of the truth of the space element. This is great. With these sky spirit plants, I might be able to learn it in one go." Without any hesitation, Chen Hao's body flashed and rushed towards the sky spirit plants. He activated his space-absorbing palm, and all of a sudden, the sky spirit plants were uprooted. Chen Hao did not even look at them as he put them into his storage space. Boom! Whoa! Just as Chen Hao put away the last sky spirit plant, accompanied by a loud beast roar, the ground within a radius of 1,000 feet suddenly exploded. A khaki-colored demonic beast, which looked like a pangolin that had expanded countless times, rushed to the sky, opened its big mouth full of fangs, and tried to swallow Chen Hao. Chen Hao was not surprised at all. Spiritual items all had demonic beasts accompanying them. How could there not be hundreds of sky spirit plants? Unhurriedly, he threw out a punch. Boom! The true essence condensed by Chen Hao, which was 90% of his strength, immediately repelled the demonic beast. However, to Chen Hao's surprise, although the huge fist shadow made by the true essence made contact with the demonic beast's body, it was swallowed and dissolved by the small space vortex that gushed out of the demonic beast's body. The demonic beast was not hurt at all. Chapter 276. Since his first punch had failed, Chen Hao formed a sword with his finger and performed the 7-star sword finger. This attack was still 90% of his strength, but it was several times sharper than a casual punch. In Chen Hao's mind, even if he couldn't kill the beast, he could at least severely injure it. But to his surprise, just as the 3 sword fingers were about to make contact with the demonic beast's head, an even more powerful spatial vortex appeared on the demonic beast's body and neutralized Chen Hao's attack. This ancient demonic beast is powerful. It is only at the peak of the late-stage Golden Core stage. I have already cultivated the 7-star finger sword to the initial stage, and its attack power has definitely increased by more than 5 times. I can even kill an early-stage nascent soul stage demonic beast with ease, but it is useless against this ancient demonic beast. The spatial vortex formed by the ancient demonic beast's body seemed to be able to devour all energy and made Qinhao's attack unable to display even 30% of its power. After being forced back twice by a puny human, the ancient demonic beast roared and opened its bloody mouth in anger. It spat out a violent vortex of energy. What powerful spatial energy! Qinhao was shocked. The ancient demonic beast's attack didn't charge toward Qinhao. Instead, it formed a massive vortex in front of its mouth. It was like a black hole and contained a terrifying devouring power. In almost an instant, Qinhao felt as if his essence was being devoured and his body was being drawn toward the demonic beast uncontrollably. The energy of heaven and earth within a radius of 10,000 feet surged toward the black hole. What powerful spatial fluctuations! 800 kilometers away, a voice that had just stepped into Sky City exclaimed in surprise after sensing the energy fluctuations. This must be one of the treasured lands in this area. Who could have been teleported to a better location than me? Could it be Jian Wufei? The figure frowned and a hint of excitement flashed in his eyes. His body flashed and he quickly flew toward the source of the energy fluctuations. When a cultivator was teleported to Sky City, it was usually related to their cultivation base and ranking. Those who weren't far away were usually people with similar strength and potential. In another direction, a few dozen kilometers away from Qinhao, a beautiful woman stared at the sky where Qinhao was. A hint of surprise appeared on her face as she muttered, "Such a strong spatial fluctuation, someone must have been teleported directly to the treasure land. No one in the Western continent can compare to me. He must be a super genius from the South Sea Islands. I'd like to see for myself." These two people were Liao Guangye and Jian Wufei, the two super geniuses of the Western continent who were only half a step away from the nascent soul stage. How is this possible? At the same time, in a place less than 20 miles away from where Qinhao was, a young disciple with an extremely powerful aura stared into the void and frowned. Someone actually teleported to a better location than me? Regardless of potential or combat strength, there's absolutely no one in the Golden Core realm that can compare to me, Yu Qingfeng. How is this possible? Could it be that an absolute genius had appeared in the Western continent? No, he must be a disciple who has just stepped into the early nascent soul stage and has great potential. Otherwise, there is no way he can be better than me. You're just an early nascent soul realm cultivator. As long as you're not from the Southern Sea Islands, you'll have to die. As soon as this voice finished speaking, it was as if space itself had been torn apart and the person suddenly disappeared. This young disciple was a half-step nascent soul stage cultivator from the South Sea Islands who was ranked in the top 8 of the Tower of Testing. He was ranked slightly lower than Qinhao, Yu Qingfeng. In the South Sea Islands, he was even more famous than the super geniuses of the core disciples. He had killed countless early nascent soul stage cultivators and even killed some mid-nascent soul stage cultivators. His body was surrounded by a murderous aura that was almost tangible. Even opponents of similar strength would find it difficult to use their full strength under his murderous aura and could only be killed. Other than these 3 people, there were 6 others. 4 of them were early nascent soul stage cultivators from the South Sea Islands, 1 was early nascent soul stage cultivator from the Western continent, and the last one was wearing a blue dress. It was Qin Shui, who had just stepped into the nascent soul stage. Including Qinhao, a total of 10 people were teleported to nearby areas. A mere late Golden Core stage cultivator was teleported to this area? How is this possible? And he's even a disciple from the Eastern continent? In a short while, Yu Qingfeng arrived near Qinhao. He concealed his presence and stood in the air as he stared at Qinhao, who was fighting a primordial demonic beast. He thought in shock. To be able to teleport here, he must be a Golden Core stage cultivator or early nascent soul stage cultivator with similar results as me. But this kid is only at the late Golden Core stage. How could he be here? Could it be that his potential ranking is higher than mine? In Yu Qingfeng's opinion, the other party should be at least an early nascent soul stage super genius. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be teleported to a better location than him. But now, the young man in front of him was only at the late Golden Core stage, and his appearance was definitely 1 or 2 years younger than him. Although this ancient beast is only at the peak of the late Golden Core stage, the ancient aura and space attribute essence that it contains are probably at the peak of the initial stage. The precious spirit herbs nearby must have been obtained by this kid. Once this beast is killed, the cultivation cave will open. I want to see how this kid kills it. Yu Qingfeng slowly released his aura. His gaze was like a mantis stalking a cicada. He stood in the void and looked at Chen Hao mockingly. He knew very well that with such a big commotion, it would not be long before some super geniuses with similar strength arrived. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to make a move. As long as they were not from the Southern Sea Islands, they would all die. When the time came, he would be the one to enter the small grotto heaven and obtain the spirit herbs. He had absolute confidence in his strength. At this moment, a blue figure appeared strangely on the other side. When Yu Qingfeng saw this figure, his eyes suddenly lit up. The second person to arrive was Chen Shui. Chen Shui was originally further away than the others, but she had the advantage of speed. Moreover, when she sensed the spatial fluctuations, she vaguely felt that it was definitely Chen Hao who had increased his speed to the limit. After all, although Yu Qingfeng and the others knew that Chen Hao was ranked 6th on the pagoda tablet, they did not know that Chen Hao was at the Golden Core stage. Therefore, Chen Shui was almost certain that Chen Hao was the only one who could teleport to such a good location. Moreover, this was just the beginning. As time passed, if she and Chen Hao wanted to obtain greater gains, they would have to continue to go deeper. By then, they would encounter mid-stage or even late-stage nascent soul realm experts, which was extremely dangerous. Therefore, if she could be with Chen Hao, they could rely on each other. When Yu Qingfeng looked at Chen Shui also noticed Yu Qingfeng's malicious gaze, but she ignored it and flew directly to Chen Hao, who was immersed in the battle, waiting for him. She was quite speechless about Chen Hao. When she came in, she had already made it very clear to Chen Hao that in the Sky Castle, with their strength, they could only keep a low profile if they wanted to protect themselves. However, Chen Hao knew that such an intense battle would attract the nearby super geniuses of the same level, but he still immersed himself in the battle without any scruples. Others could not tell, but Chen Shui knew that Chen Hao was not fighting with all his strength. Instead, he was deliberately entangled with the ancient demonic beast, obviously trying to understand the mysteries of the space attribute from the ancient demonic beast. Brother Yu! Whoosh whoosh! A few others arrived one after another. Among them, there were 4 early-stage nascent soul realm disciples. When they saw Yu Qingfeng, they immediately flew to his side. Although their cultivation levels were higher than Yu Qingfeng's, their eyes were full of respect, but their hearts were filled with shock and confusion. Originally, they all thought that the one who caused the commotion was Yu Qingfeng, so they came to get a share of the loot. However, they did not expect that the one who was fighting with the ancient demonic beast was a young late-stage Golden Core realm disciple. Wu Fei, I'm very happy to meet you. When the Western Mainland disciple, Liao Guangya, saw the familiar figure, he immediately flew over and said with a smile. Jian Wufei nodded and did not say anything. Her gaze slowly swept past Yu Qingfeng and the others, and finally landed on Chen Hao. The other half-step nascent soul realm disciple from the Western Mainland also flew to the two of them. Hee, Brother Yu, it is said that each region corresponds to a small cultivation grotto heaven. The number of people sent to this region is usually 10. The closer the location is to the small cultivation grotto heaven, the stronger the overall strength. However, there are also accidents and luck. This kid is only at the late-stage Golden Core realm, so his potential is not bad. However, luck is even better. Otherwise, he would not have found it before Brother Yu. Of course. Brother Yu is the #1 inner disciple in the Southern Sea Islands. Who can compare to him? Brother Yu, let's kill these guys. There are 5 of us, 3 from the Western Mainland, and 2 from the Eastern Mainland. It is not a ratio at all. We just need to get a share of the loot. In the Southern Sea Islands, a disciple looked at Liao Guangya and Qin Hao and said in a relaxed tone. From the looks of it, it was as if killing 5 people was an extremely easy task. You guys go and take down the 3 from the western mainland. Kill the man and leave the girl. The 2 from the eastern mainland are not in a hurry. I will take care of them later. But, arrogant. Tell me your name. I want to see what is so great about the southern sea islands. Liao Guangye heard the provocation and immediately said in a furious tone, especially when Yu Qingfeng's tone made it clear that he was interested in Jian Wufei. Chen Shui, who was standing near Chen Hao in a serious battle array, had her brows knit together tightly as a strong battle intent arose from her body. Her aura instantly became icy cold to the extreme as she stared at the 2 groups that seemed to be about to open fire. Ah, your courage is commendable. How can you compare to the Southern Sea Islands? Listen up, this is the #1 genius of the Southern Sea Islands, Yu Qingfeng. With his half-step nascent soul cultivation, he is ranked 8th in the test. As for the 4 of us, we are not people you can compare to. Cut the crap and accept your death obediently. Brothers, hiss hiss hiss. The 4 of them charged towards Liao Guangye, Jian Wufei, and the other disciple from the western mainland. You are courting death. Jian Wufei let out a cold shout and suddenly attacked. When she heard Yu Qingfeng's name, she was indeed very surprised. However, whether it was her or Liao Guangye, they were both extremely arrogant geniuses. It was impossible for them to give up without a fight. Guaranteed first update. As of yesterday, I owe everyone 23 chapters. I will continue to update today. I will try my best to repay my debt. I will guarantee at least 2 chapters a day. The extra chapters will be used to repay my debt. The second update will be tonight. I am very sorry. I have made everyone wait for so long. Chapter 277. Geniuses all have arrogance that normal people don't have. Otherwise, they wouldn't be geniuses. When facing an opponent of similar strength, if they give in before the battle, they will lose their drive. How can a cultivator without drive become a genius? Plus, Jian Wufei's ranking was only 3 places lower than Yu Qingfeng's. She, who was half a step away from the nascent soul stage, was ranked 11th. Liao Guangye was ranked 26th and was second only to her in the golden core stage of the western continent. With the addition of another nascent soul stage cultivator, even if the 3 of them can't defeat Yu Qingfeng's group of 5, they can still retreat. What is there to fear? Jian Wufei stepped forward and stabbed out with her sword. This? Good. Facing Jian Wufei's incoming disciple, he shouted in disdain and punched out. Boom. A terrifying explosion erupted between the 2 of them. What the disciple from the South Sea Islands didn't expect was that Jian Wufei's seemingly casual slash actually contained an energy as vast as a mountain and as deep as an ocean. The moment they collided, his violent punch was shattered. Within the resplendent sword light, he seemed to see a majestic scene of mountains and rivers. It gave him a feeling that he couldn't be defeated, which terrified him to the extreme. But the punch was too late and it was too late for him to dodge. In an instant, the disciple flew back like a kite with a broken string. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He was heavily injured in one move. Oomph! Yu Qingfeng coldly snorted. When the disciple flew to his side, he waved his hand and sent out a beam of energy to catch him. He stared coldly at Jian Wufei and said, "You are a disciple of the Western Continent's Tianhe sect? If I'm not wrong, you are Jian Wufei who was ranked 11th in the test? So what if I am?" Jian Wufei said coldly, "I didn't think that you would be able to learn the mountain river sword technique. You are worthy of me, Yu Qingfeng, making a move. I will give you 2 choices. 1 is to die. 2 is to surrender and teach me the mountain river sword technique. Then I can spare your life. If you are obedient, I can make you one of my companions. How about it? Don't be in a hurry to answer. I will give you 1 minute to consider." Whoosh, Yu Qing casually said. However, his words were overbearing and arrogant, as if he didn't put Jian Wufei and the others in his eyes at all. Just as he finished speaking, a fan mysteriously appeared in his hand. With a schwa sound, he opened it and gently fanned it. He looked at Jian Wufei with a mocking gaze. He looked like a pale-faced scholar who didn't have the strength to truss a chicken. However, the dense murderous aura that surged around him destroyed this artistic conception. In fact, even Yu Qingfeng didn't dare to underestimate Jian Wufei. To severely injure an early nascent soul stage supergenius with one move, even he would find it difficult to do so. This strength was definitely enough to contend with him. The reason was naturally the mountain river sword art. The mountain river sword technique was one of the most famous techniques of the Milky Way sect. It was extremely difficult to cultivate. Without top-notch talent and comprehension, it was impossible to cultivate it successfully. Moreover, the basic conditions for cultivation were quite harsh. One had to be a swordsman who had comprehended sword essence. Once mastered, the sword will would contain the sword Dao attribute that cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. The sword Dao attribute was actually the sword Dao intent. Once one had the sword Dao intent, any casual attack would greatly affect the cultivator's state of mind. Especially those with weak mental fortitude, the impact would be even greater. It would be difficult for them to even use 50% of their strength. The Mountain River Sword technique of the Milky Way sect contained the Mountain River Sword Dao attribute. One move and the Mountain River has me. It was safe to say that the test ranking didn't reflect Jian Wufei's true strength. The reason was simple. The puppets in the test tower had no emotions. They wouldn't be affected by the sword Dao intent. If it was a real person, Jian Wufei's ranking would definitely be higher. Just you? You'll have to get past me first. Liao Guangye saw Jian Wufei's strength and was both shocked and overjoyed. Therefore, even though he felt how terrifying Yu Qingfeng was, he still wanted to fight on Jian Wufei's behalf. Who do you think you are? Fuck off. Yu Qingfeng didn't move. Another early nascent soul stage cultivator stepped forward to meet Liao Guangye. The battle was about to begin. Jian Wufei's answer to Yu Qingfeng was her violent sword light. Every sword light contained the mountain river will. Boom boom boom. The terrifying energy explosion wreaked havoc. Chen Shui, who was guarding Qin Hao who was immersed in the battle, became a bystander. It had to be said that the two sides didn't put her and Qin Hao in their eyes at all. It was as if they wanted to, they could kill Chen Shui and Chen Hao at any time. Chen Hao naturally saw them coming. However, he was immersed in comprehending the space attribute of the ancient demonic beast and didn't want to be distracted. Even an idiot would know that such a powerful and mysterious ancient demonic beast was extremely rare. If he missed it, he wouldn't have another chance. Boom. Hiss. There was a loud sound and the ancient demonic beast's cry. A dense energy spread out from Chen Hao's body. It was like a wave that swept out for hundreds of meters. The thick energy in the area seemed to be summoned and crazily rushed toward Chen Hao. What? He killed it? Everyone was shocked. They had already noticed the ancient demonic beast. Although it was only at the peak of the advanced stage of the Golden Core realm, it contained the space attribute. Based on Chen Hao's performance just now, it would take a long time to kill it. However, at this moment, it was killed in a moment of carelessness. What did the death of the ancient demonic beast mean? It meant that a small cultivation grotto heaven was about to appear. However, that wasn't what shocked them. What really shocked them was that Chen Hao, who was fighting with the ancient demonic beast, had entered the state of enlightenment that all cultivators dreamed of. Enlightenment. This kid entered a state of enlightenment at this moment. Kill him first. This kid must have great strength and potential to be able to come here. If he succeeds, it will be troublesome. Almost at the same time, the two sides, including Yu Qingfeng and Jian Wufei, stopped fighting and looked at Chen Hao. Not only did they want to kill Chen Hao, who had entered a state of enlightenment, they also wanted to fight for the grotto heaven that was about to appear. Shameless. What do you want? We don't have to fight for the grotto heaven, but don't interrupt his enlightenment. Boom. Energy exploded from Chen Shui's body. Her blue dress fluttered in the wind as she stood guard beside Chen Hao. Like an eagle protecting a chick, she opened her arms. Even Chen Shui didn't expect that Chen Hao would actually enter a state of epiphany when danger was lurking everywhere. If she was facing the cultivators of the eastern continent, she could still sternly warn them. However, facing the disciples of the southern sea archipelago and the western continent, who would abide by this conventional law of the cultivation world. However, her opponent hadn't made a move yet. She still held on to a sliver of hope. At this moment, the door to the grotto heavens suddenly appeared 1,000 feet above Chen Hao's head. "It's open! Kill him!" Yu Qingfeng waved his fan. Streaks of sharp wind blades containing dense killing intent and terrifying energy tore through the void. Jian Wufei stabbed out with her sword. Her sword light was infused with the mountain river sword Dao. It wasn't any weaker than Yu Qingfeng's attack. Their attacks were 1,000 feet apart, but they still rushed towards Chen Hao and Chen Hao. She took the lead. Yu Qingfeng and Jian Wufei clearly wanted to kill Chen Hao and Chen Hao together. They wanted to cut off the space between Chen Hao and the door to the grotto heaven. Even Yu Qingfeng didn't hesitate. Although he was greedy for Qin Shue's beauty, he knew that once Qin Shue, who was the closest to the door, entered, the door would close and they would all lose their chance. As for the other 6 people, besides the guy who was injured by Jian Wufei who was meditating and healing, the other 5 people also attacked. Chen Hao. Knowing that Chen Hao was destined to be interrupted, Qin Shue decisively shouted at Chen Hao. At the same time, she rushed towards Chen Hao as fast as lightning. She knew very well that those terrifying attacks were not something she could withstand. If she didn't dodge, she and Chen Hao would definitely be blasted to smithereens. Peng ping peng. Chen Hao, who was in the midst of his epiphany, was like a terrifying black hole. It was crazily devouring the heaven and earth spiritual qi. Every time Qin Shue got close, she would have to endure the attacks of the heaven and earth spiritual qi. However, she could only grit her teeth and rush over. It was also at this moment that Chen Hao, who was in the midst of his epiphany, also sensed a fatal threat. His eyes abruptly opened, filled with monstrous fury. He waved his hand to welcome Qin Shue, who was rushing over to hug him and escape, and hugged her instead. Boom! The violent energy around his body instantly formed a protective barrier. It forcefully blocked the attacks that were sealing him and the door to the grotto heaven. Pooh! 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 Arrows of blood shot out of Chen Hao's body without any suspense. In an instant, his body was covered in wounds. Blood and flesh flew everywhere and several holes that almost penetrated his body appeared. The moment Chen Hao entered the grotto heaven, he turned around and looked at the shocked Yu Qingfeng, Jian Wufei, and the others who were madly rushing over. "Just you wait." What? The moment Chen Hao rushed in with Qin Shue, the door to the grotto heaven disappeared. However, Chen Hao's cold voice rang out in everyone's ears. "Fuck! How is this possible?" Yu Qingfeng, Jian Wufei, and the others were dumbfounded. No one would have thought that Chen Hao would be able to bring Qin Shue into the grotto heaven with their combined strength. The combined attacks of several people, especially those of Yu Qingfeng and Jian Wufei, should have been able to instantly blast the 2 of them to smithereens. However, Chen Hao had actually protected Qin Shue and rushed into the grotto heaven. From those terrifying wounds, in their opinion, Chen Hao would undoubtedly die. However, since the door to the grotto heaven was closed, there could only be one reason. Chen Shue wasn't dead. The grotto heaven could only be entered once. There was no problem for 2, 3, or even more people to enter at the same time. However, as long as a life form entered, it would close. There was no second chance. This was also the reason why they were frantically trying to stop Chen Hao and Qin Shue. What a terrifying gaze. Fortunately, this guy is definitely going to die. Otherwise, apart from Yu Qingfeng and Jian Wufei, even Liao Guangye was shocked by Chen Hao's gaze. He felt a chill run down his spine. Too tragic. The second chapter was supposed to be finished at 8, but it suddenly crashed. There was nothing left. I could only start again. I can only guarantee that I'll finish 2 chapters today. I still owe 23 chapters. Chapter 278. Damn it! Yu Qingfeng clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Then he stared at Jian Wufei coldly. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Jian Wufei, if you had listened to me, they wouldn't have gotten what they wanted. Now all of you die. Boom. The extremely dense killing intent was raised to the limit by Yu Qingfeng. After the fight just now, Yu Qingfeng knew that if he wanted to take down Jian Wufei, he would have to use his true abilities. As the #1 Golden Core cultivator of the Southern Sea Islands, he had never failed in anything he did. In the same level, no one could surpass him. But this time he lost. Chen Hao and Chen Shui, whose names he didn't even know, stole his small cultivation grotto heaven. How could he not be angry? And all of this was because of Jian Wufei. If it weren't for the fight with Jian Wufei, how could he have let Chen Hao and Chen Shui get what they wanted? In other words, if Jian Wufei was slightly weaker, Chen Hao and Chen Shui wouldn't have gotten what they wanted. If you want to kill me, then use your true abilities. Jian Wufei was also furious. To her, it was all because of Yu Qingfeng. Without his provocation, how could the weakest get what they wanted? As she spoke, Jian Wufei stepped forward. Her snow-white wrist suddenly shook. In an instant, a sword ray that contained the will of the mountain flew towards Yu Qingfeng. Jian Wufei also knew how powerful Yu Qingfeng was. Plus, Yu Qingfeng didn't use his true abilities, awakening his bloodline. 9 out of 10 of the super geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands had an ancient bloodline. Their physiques were naturally comparable to beasts. How could Yu Qingfeng not have it? The moment Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng began their fight, Liao Guangye and the other two also began their fight against the 3 from the Southern Sea Islands. Liao Guangye didn't attack the 3 people who were still in good condition. Instead, he attacked the disciple who was sitting cross-legged and recuperating with his sword without any warning. The disciple sensed great danger and opened his eyes. He spat out a mouthful of blood and a terrifying bloodline power exploded. Then, his entire body turned into a ray of light and escaped. You want to kill me? In your dreams. Brother Yu, I'm heavily injured, I'll take a step back first. Jian Wufei, Liao Guangye, Sima Xiangnan, will avenge today's humiliation. Sima Xiangnan's humiliating voice floated from afar. It had to be said that every single person present here was a super genius who had experienced great storms and waves. They were all top figures in their respective sects, and all of them had ultimate life-saving moves. Wanting to easily kill them was absolutely not an easy task. You actually managed to escape with such heavy injuries. I'll let you live for now. Liao Guangye didn't give chase. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he couldn't. If he chased after her, only Jian Wufei and one other person would be left. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng were equal in strength. Although the other person was strong, he had no chance of winning against the other 3 from the South Sea Islands. 1-on-1, 2-on-3, dog-eat-dog battles had just begun. After more than 10 minutes, when Yu Qingfeng was forced to release the power of his ancient bloodline, Jian Wufei, who had cultivated the mountain river sword art, was forced back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Of course, Yu Qingfeng wasn't any better. Let's go. Jian Wufei saw that Liao Guangye and the other person were only equal in strength against the other 3 and were being suppressed. She didn't hesitate and gave the order. Liao Guangye and the other disciple hurriedly used their ultimate move and forced the other 3 to retreat with Jian Wufei. Yu Qingfeng and the other 3 knew that it was impossible to kill them, so they didn't chase after them. Wufei were leaving just like this? After Jian Wufei and the other 2 had escaped a few hundred miles away, Liao Guangye unwillingly asked. Did I say we were leaving? We're only retreating temporarily. Right now, the 3 of us are only equal in strength against them. If we really fight to the death, we might be the ones to lose. Let's find a place to cultivate first. The small cultivation grotto heaven has a month of time. In Sky City, a month is enough for me to cultivate the 4th level of the mountain river sword art. My mountain river sword art will definitely reach the early stage of great success. At that time, Yu Qingfeng won't be my match. The male disciple from the eastern continent will definitely be dead. Even if the female disciple comes out of the grotto heaven, she won't be my match. When we kill her, we'll be able to obtain the treasures in the grotto heaven. Those treasures definitely have something to do with space. We must obtain them. Powerful. Hearing Jian Wufei's words, Liao Guangye and the other disciple said in shock. They knew how powerful the mountain river sword art was. If Jian Wufei, who was only half-step nascent soul, could really cultivate the 4th level, not to mention Yu Chengfeng. Even if she met a late-stage nascent soul expert, Jian Wufei would have the ability to kill them. What did it mean to reach the early stage of great success in the Mountain River sword art? Under normal circumstances, only super geniuses at the incarnation realm could cultivate it. Jian Wufei, I don't ask for much. After obtaining it, I only want 10% of the spiritual herbs. If there are many spiritual treasures, I'll share them. If not, I don't care. If there are secret manuals, I want to obtain the right to cultivate them. I promise I won't tell anyone. The other disciple said. No problem. Jian Wufei said. Looks like I'll have to work harder. Wufei, I won't be left behind by you. Let's meet here in 29 days. As for the distribution after obtaining it, you can decide. Liao Guangye looked deeply at Jian Wufei before disappearing into the horizon. Goodbye. The other disciple also cupped his fists and left. Seeing the two of them leave, Jian Wufei revealed a trace of disdain and thought. If it wasn't for the fact that I don't have absolute confidence in comprehending the Mountain River sword art, why would I care about you? Although Liao Guangye is not bad, he's not on the same level as me. How can he be worthy of me? No matter what, I must obtain the treasures in this grotto heaven. Once I increase my comprehension of space, my Mountain River sword art will be even stronger. Not to mention the super geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands, I can even make a name for myself in the Central Continent. Brother Yu, that Jian Wufei definitely won't leave like this. If I'm not wrong, they'll definitely come in a month. Although Brother Yu is strong, Jian Wufei is also a super genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. If you want to kill her, you'll have to fight to the death. Why don't we prepare first? After Jian Wufei and the others left, a disciple from the Southern Sea Islands spoke in a deep voice. You're talking about setting up an array? Yu Chengfeng looked at the disciple and pondered. This disciple's strength was the weakest of the 5, but his fame in the Southern Sea Islands was second only to Yu Chengfeng. The reason was that he was proficient in the Tao of mechanisms and formations, and had astonishing talent in this aspect. Otherwise, with his strength, he wouldn't have been able to get such a result in the Sky Cities test. This youth's name was Han Ji, and he was nicknamed Little Shenji in the Southern Sea Islands. He was the successor of the current sect leader of the archaic sect, Shenji Zi. That's right. As long as I set up an array here, both Jian Wufei and the girl in the grotto heaven will be trapped. Although they won't be trapped for long, a few minutes will be enough. With Brother Yu's strength, you'll definitely be able to capture or kill them. I know that Brother Yu doesn't care about using such methods, but this is a fight for luck. If we don't do this, we might end up like today's situation again. Han Ji quickly said when he saw the look in Yu Chengfeng's eyes. Yes, Brother Yu, Han Ji is right. Although Jian Wufei isn't Brother Yu's match, if Brother Yu wants to take her down, you'll have to fight to the death. When that happens, it'll be bad if that girl from the Eastern Continent takes advantage of us. This time, she arrived before us, so she's obviously very fast, and her strength shouldn't be weak either. If she really escapes, we'll suffer a great loss. If we do this, we'll be absolutely safe. Alright, then we'll do as you say. Han Ji, I'll leave the setting up of the array to you. We'll split the cost of the materials from the treasures we get. As for the distribution, it'll depend on how much effort each person puts in. Let's do it this way. Both sides were confident in their victory, so they didn't care about Chen Shui and Qin Hao in the grotto heaven. In their eyes, Chen Hao had suffered such a terrifying injury that it was impossible for him to survive. As for Qin Shui, even if she had improved tremendously in the grotto heaven, she wouldn't be able to cause any waves. It was only a month's time. Even if she obtained a powerful technique, how much could she comprehend? Fuck them. When I get out, they'll all die. Chen Hao, who had stepped into the small cultivation cave, endured the enormous injuries and suffocation all over his body, and cursed angrily. At this moment, this fellow was truly stifled to the extreme. Epiphany, that was the legendary epiphany, the epiphany that cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. Even if he wanted to encounter it once, it was extremely difficult. It was definitely something that could only be chanced upon and not sought. But it had been forcefully interrupted by those guys. Otherwise, Chen Hao was sure that he would have reached the peak of the late golden core stage, or even half a step into the nascent soul stage. Moreover, he would have been able to comprehend the true essence of the space element. How many times would his battle strength increase? It would be strange if he wasn't depressed. Chen Shui broke free from Chen Hao's embrace and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. She simply didn't care about the injuries she had received. Under the black veil, her beautiful eyes stared at Chen Hao in a daze. With a trace of anxiety, she said, "Quickly, I have a nirvana pill here. Swallow it." Chen Shui knew that if Chen Hao didn't use his body to protect her, she would have been smashed into pieces. Of course, she was in danger because she wanted to save Chen Hao. At this moment, Chen Hao's body, especially between his waist and chest, had 7 to 8 holes that almost completely penetrated his body. She could see his internal organs at a glance. How could she not be anxious? Not to mention that Chen Hao was her younger brother. Even her friendship with Chen Hao made her extremely frightened. The Nirvana pill was a life-saving pill that her master gave her. But at this moment, she could only give it to Chen Hao without hesitation. Because she knew that if she played for a while longer, Chen Hao's life would probably end here. Part 1. At the end of the chapters in the future, Dark Mountain won't nag about how many chapters it owes. Dark Mountain will do its best to pay it back as soon as possible. Chapter 279. Don't waste it. Chen Hao glanced at the sparkling red Nirvana elixir. His eyes flashed with a hint of complexity as he stared at Chen Shui and said, "No, you won't die. You definitely won't die. Nirvana elixir is a healing elixir for the dead. As long as you still have a breath, even if your internal organs are destroyed, it can help you recover. Quickly eat it." When Chen Shui heard Chen Hao's words, she thought that Chen Hao didn't know the power of the Nirvana elixir and hurriedly said. As she spoke, she reached out and stuffed the Nirvana elixir into Chen Hao's mouth. "Don't worry, I won't die. It's just a waste to eat it. I've already swallowed the Nirvana elixir a long time ago. Your injuries aren't light either. It's better for you to eat it. Don't waste a month on healing," Chen Hao said calmly. After he finished speaking, he sat up cross-legged. It was obvious that he couldn't hold on any longer. If it were anyone else, they would have long since died from the severe injuries to their physical body. However, Chen Hao's soul wasn't affected at all. The only thing that was affected was that his meridians had collapsed and his internal organs had lost their functions. He relied on his mental strength to support himself. "What are you afraid of? I'm not asking you to return it. Such heavy injuries, swallow it," Chen Shui said as she once again stuffed it into Chen Hao's mouth. Chen Hao's mind moved and a condensed energy suddenly pushed Chen Shui away. He said in a firm tone, "I said I don't need it. I have the immortal bloodline. At most 3 days, it will be as good as new. Eat it yourself. I'm going to start healing." After speaking, Chen Hao ignored the wide-eyed Chen Shui and directly entered the state of healing. Immortal bloodline. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao in surprise. Her gaze was directly focused on the huge wounds on Chen Hao's body. What shocked her was that the shattered internal organs and muscles were actually trembling slightly. As if they were alive, they were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Phew! Chen Shui heaved a long sigh of relief. She, who had completely calmed down, suddenly felt bursts of intense pain coming from her body. Her injuries were also very serious. Although Chen Hao had blocked most of the attacks, she was not spared. She hesitated for a moment. Although she was reluctant, Chen Shui still put the Nirvana pill into her mouth. Although she could heal herself, it would take time. Even in this space where the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was extremely dense, it would take at least 10 days to half a month for her to fully recover. And a month later, she was certain that between Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei, at least one of them would be guarding the exit. She had already seen the strength of those people. Even if she ran away, she would not be able to escape unscathed. Strength was everything. Not to mention that Chen Hao wanted revenge, even she was not willing to let those people go. Only by killing those people could she calm the anger in her heart. Boom! Billows of Nirvana pills began to spread in Chen Shui's dantian. Red flames seemed to rise from Qin Shue's body. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, her internal and external injuries disappeared without a trace. Although the powerful nirvana pill was not like Chen Hao's dantian where there was a lot of energy left, there was still a lot left and it was directly absorbed by Chen Shue's dantian. The entire process only lasted for about 10 minutes. Then, Chen Shue slowly opened her eyes. 2 rays of light shot out from her eyes. Although her true qi had not recovered to its peak state, it had recovered by about 50%. Not only had her physical injuries completely healed, but her physical strength had also improved under the refinement of the nirvana pill. One had to admit that the power of the nirvana pill was still very useful even for those of the original level. Phew! Qin Shui let out a long sigh and looked at Chen Hao, who was not far away. At this moment, Chen Hao's body was shrouded in blue flames. A figure that seemed real and illusory was circling above his head. It was the legendary divine beast Vermilion Bird. Seeing this scene, Chen Shui was only slightly surprised for a moment before she understood what was going on. Could it be that he has gathered all 5 divine beasts? Chen Shui pondered. He didn't use the Nirvana Phoenix but used the Vermilion Bird. Obviously, he gave the Phoenix's inheritance to Tan Tai Lien. Otherwise, the Nirvana Phoenix's healing speed would definitely be faster than the Vermilion Bird. What a fast recovery speed! When Qin Shue's gaze locked onto the bloody holes on Chen Hao's body, she could not help but exclaim. In just over 10 minutes, Chen Hao's wounds had healed by about 10% without any elixirs. At this speed, Chen Hao would be able to fully recover in less than 3 days. What a freak! It seems that it's really difficult for me to surpass him. To be able to obtain the inheritance of the 5 divine beasts, his body must contain an even more shocking secret like what Mother said. Moreover, he just said that he had eaten the Nirvana pill a long time ago. That's the Nirvana pill. When Mother gave it to me, she cautioned me not to use it unless it was a last resort. It can be seen how precious it is. Even the star-picking sect can't have it. Where did he come from? Plus the immortal bloodline. The more Qin Shui thought about it, the more shocked and puzzled she was. She could only stop thinking about it. Everyone had their own secrets, and so did she. Slowly standing up, Qin Shui only had time to size up the surrounding space at this time. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the city in the sky was already extremely dense, and this small cultivation grotto heaven was even denser to an unimaginable degree. Chen Shui did not need to deliberately refine it at all as her inner yuan recovered rapidly. It was definitely twice as fast as when she cultivated in the outside world. Moreover, the entire space was filled with a faint space attribute mystery. 7 colored clouds were circling in the sky, as if they were rotating all the time. She had already comprehended the true essence of the space attribute to the peak of the elementary level, and was about to break through to the small success stage. Her perception was far more profound than Chen Hao's. Her powerful soul perception spread out, and Qin Shui suddenly had a clearer understanding of the space she was in. The entire space was not big. There was only one huge mountain that was 90,000 feet high. The mountain peak was like a flight of steps. Every 1,000 feet it rose, there would be a circular platform that was about 1,000 feet wide. There were a total of 9 levels, and when it reached the peak, it had already become pointed. What was even more amazing was that the peak was spewing out dark blue water. To be exact, it was not water, but the legendary spirit spring. Although Qin Shui did not get close to examine it, her powerful perception could sense the pure energy contained in the spirit spring. The spirit spring spewed out from the peak, making the entire mountain peak look like a waterfall. It was divided into 9 levels that fell vertically, and the rumbling sound resounded through the heavens and earth. At this moment, Qin Shui and Chen Hao were at the flat ground that extended out for about 100 miles from the foot of the mountain peak. Beyond that, there was a 7-colored light that was obviously the boundary of the space. Chen Shui's powerful soul perception could not penetrate it at all. He still needs 2 or 3 days. I'll go take a look first. Hiss. Chen Shui glanced at Chen Hao. After confirming that there was no problem, she turned into a stream of light and flew towards the mountain peak. There were no demonic beasts in the small cultivation grotto heaven, so Qin Shui was not worried that Qin Hao would be disturbed. In the entire space, there would not be a third person other than the two of them. Qin Shui was slightly surprised. She originally wanted to fly to the pool at the foot of the mountain, but when she reached the edge, she was bound by an invisible energy and could no longer move forward. This energy was of the space attribute. Even with Qin Shui's comprehension of the space attribute, she could not move it at all. Do I have to start from the peak? Regarding the situation of the small and medium-sized cultivation grotto heavens in the Sky City, before coming in, her mother had already explained some things to her. Everyone's opportunities were different, and the ones they entered were also different, but there was one thing in common, and that was that any cultivation grotto heaven had a test. The higher the talent and comprehension, the greater the harvest. Qin Shui once again tried to reach the platform at the top of the mountain, but she still could not reach it. After thinking for a while, she determined that the first test of this small grotto heaven must start from the peak. Sure enough, when Qin Shui rushed to the peak, she stepped onto the pool of water that was only 300 feet in radius without any hindrance. The entire peak was like a small sunken lake. The waterfalls were falling from this small lake. What a strong energy! The lake water was incomparably clear, reflecting the rainbow-colored light in the sky. It looked beautiful and illusory. Numerous small whirlpools were connected together. With just a glance, Qin Shui could see the profoundness of the spatial attribute contained within. Moreover, with her comprehension of the space attribute at the peak of the initial stage, she could easily control this mystery. Therefore, it was not that she was not surprised. What really surprised her was the spiritual energy fluctuations emitted by the lake water. This kind of spiritual spring was definitely purer than the spiritual water used for alchemy in her sect. Moreover, it also contained an ancient aura that had existed for tens of thousands of years. Let's not wait for him. There's a total of 1 month. I'll start first. Anyway, cultivating and comprehending here will not affect him at all. I'll just share the treasures with him, Qin Shui said softly. After saying that, she jumped into the small lake without hesitation. The moment she entered, Qin Shui was immediately enveloped by the clear spiritual spring, and strange whirlpools instantly swallowed her graceful figure. She directly disappeared from the lake. What shocked Qin Shui was that she felt that she could see through the whirlpools that contained the space attribute at a glance, but when she really stepped into the lake water, the whirlpools that enveloped her directly made her lose control of her own body. It was not that her space attribute realm was not good enough. She was certain that the space attribute essence contained in the whirlpools was definitely only at the initial stage. She was at the peak of the initial stage, almost reaching the initial stage. However, this whirlpool displayed the use of the initial stage of the space attribute essence to a realm that Qin Shui could not imagine at all. It can be used like this? That's great. If I can learn this way of using it, my combat power will at least increase by 30%. This is too ingenious. At the same time that Qin Shui was shocked, she was also extremely excited in her heart. After pondering for a moment, she decisively took off the tattered clothes on her body. Her graceful and exquisite body was instantly immersed in the clear whirlpool. She was like a mermaid. Every inch of her skin and every strand of her mind was immersed in learning how to operate the whirlpool. Second update. There are more updates at night. It may be a little late. I suggest that everyone not wait and read it tomorrow. Chapter 280. In less than 2 days, Shen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, spat out a mouthful of blue flames. The vermilion bird circling above his head suddenly let out a cry that resounded through the heavens and earth. It turned into a stream of light and entered Qin Hao's forehead. Crack, crack, crack. Qin Hao's body shook slightly and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. It was like the sound of metal clashing, filled with endless power. I didn't think that this injury would allow me to fuse with the vermilion bird's inheritance and reach the second level of heavenly fire. My body is twice as strong. Chen Hao's face revealed a trace of relief. Chen Hao had comprehended 3 heavenly Dao laws in the 7-star cave heaven, including the essence of fire. After he came out, although he didn't deliberately cultivate the vermilion bird's inheritance, he naturally completed the 8 steps of fusion with the vermilion bird and reached the peak of the 1st level. His heavenly fire also reached the peak of the 1st level. And this time, Chen Hao wanted to use the vermilion bird's talent to quickly recover his body. He didn't expect that in just 2 days, his heavenly fire would reach the 2nd level. Sensing the breath of heavenly fire, Chen Hao was sure that even a peak late-stage golden core expert would find it difficult to resist the 2nd level of heavenly fire. What a pity! I only had a moment of enlightenment and I reached the peak late-stage golden core. If those guys didn't interrupt me, I might have already reached the half-step nascent soul stage. Fuck them. I hope they haven't given up and are still waiting. Chen Hao said coldly. Sensing the energy in his body, he was full of confidence. He had tasted Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei's attacks. Before he entered, he couldn't compete with them. But now, he was at the peak late-stage golden core stage and his body was twice as strong under the refinement of the 2nd level of heavenly fire. His overall strength had definitely increased by more than 4 times. If he met the 2 of them again, Chen Hao had absolute confidence in fighting them. Chen Hao wasn't sure if he could kill them because these top geniuses all had their own trump cards. Unless they were on the verge of death, no one could be sure who was stronger than the other. Releasing his powerful soul perception, Chen Hao immediately transformed into a beam of light. He did not even attempt to go to the foot of the mountain. Instead, he directly charged towards the peak. It wasn't that Chen Hao's soul perception was much stronger than Chen Shui's. It was just that Chen Hao had roughly glanced at the waterfalls and judged that the 1st stage of this heavenly abode must be at the peak, because the lower the waterfalls, the stronger the power would be. He had already been delayed for almost 2 days, and he didn't want to delay any longer. He recovered so quickly. Chen Hao had just appeared above the small lake on the peak when Chen Shui, who was wearing a blue dress and had wet hair, appeared in front of Chen Hao and asked in surprise. What made Chen Hao slightly surprised was that there were no traces of water on Chen Shui's clothes, and her face was still covered by a black veil. However, Chen Hao could faintly see through the veil that Chen Shui's beautiful little face was flushed red. "Are you waiting for me?" Chen Hao asked with a frown. "I just heard the vermilion birds cry, so I came out." "Chen Hao." Chen Shui wanted to say something but hesitated. It seemed that she wanted to say something, but in the end, it was a little difficult to speak. If it wasn't for the vermilion bird's cry waking her up, the current situation would have been extremely awkward. "What's wrong? If there's anything, just say it," Chen Hao said with a little puzzlement. This lake is a rare spirit spring. It contains extremely pure spirit qi of heaven and earth. The vortex that is condensed contains the true essence of the space attribute and is extremely mysterious. If we want to comprehend it faster, the only way is to let our bodies completely come into contact with the spirit spring. Oh, that means we have to strip naked, right? What's there to be conflicted about? We are siblings, so I won't have any improper thoughts. Don't worry, just do what you have to do. I won't peek at you. Of course, you also shouldn't peek at me, Chen Hao said with a serious expression on his face. But in his heart, he was also conflicted. The relationship between siblings was not bad, but they were not related by blood. Although Chen Hao would not have any thoughts, the 2 of them being naked in this small lake with a circumference of only 300 feet would be very awkward. After all, one was gorgeously dressed, and the other was hot-blooded. It was absolutely impossible to say that there was no temptation. Chen Hao was not Lu Xiaohui, and Chen Shui was also not a virgin. What are you thinking about? Chen Shui's face suddenly turned red. What I mean is, can you be a few hours later, at most half a day's time, and I will be able to completely comprehend it and enter the next level. Anyway, you haven't comprehended the true essence of the space attribute. If you enter this lake, the vortex will swallow you and it won't be beneficial for you to comprehend it. As long as you are in this cave, the clouds in the sky and the aura in the air all contain the mysteries of the space attribute. The only thing missing is the spirit qi of heaven and earth. Okay, you continue. Call me when you're done. Chen Hao glanced at the densely packed small vortexes in the lake and immediately understood Chen Shui's meaning. Indeed, if he did not control the space attribute, it would not be beneficial for him to comprehend it. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he directly turned into a stream of light and flew directly into the clouds in the sky that were rotating in a strange way. He shouldn't be peeking, right? Chen Shui stared at Chen Hao entering the clouds and muttered. Soon after, she bit her lips and plunged into the lake. When she entered the depths of the lake along with the vortex, she took off her clothes. Once again, she became a naked mermaid, immersed in the comprehension. Chen Hao drilled into the clouds and was immediately surrounded by clouds. Thick spatial energy instantly swept Chen Hao's body. When Chen Hao was fighting with the ancient demon beasts, he was already infinitely close to comprehending the true essence of the space attribute. Although his epiphany was interrupted, it also allowed Chen Hao to obtain endless benefits. At this moment, there was only a thin layer of paper between him and the comprehension. Chen Hao could feel that as long as he was given a little time in this environment, he would definitely be able to smoothly comprehend it. This was indeed the case. In less than 4 hours, Chen Hao was no longer affected by the rotating clouds. His entire person seemed to have merged with the clouds. As the clouds rotated, the clouds rolled and unrolled. It was very uncomfortable. It was also only at this time that Chen Hao realized that the rotation of the clouds contained a trace of the use of the space attribute's true essence. However, Chen Hao had an understanding that ordinary people simply could not compare to in terms of the use of power and the heavenly law. In a moment, he had grasped the mysteries of the rotation of the clouds. Soon after, Chen Hao directly pounced on another cloud that was rotating even more violently. Sure enough, as Chen Hao expected, this cloud contained another kind of technique. Amazing! On the path of cultivation, what really depends on is comprehension and practice. This small cultivation paradise is definitely a real cultivation paradise. It's absolutely not something any secret manual can compare to. This kind of usage of the true essence of the space attribute is the most basic technique, but any one of them has the ability to turn something rotten into something magical. Although my Taoist scripture is strong, without sufficient cultivation experience, it's impossible to cultivate it. Moreover, when Chen Hao spoke up to hear, he pondered for a moment, and his eyes shone with a radiant light that was filled with confidence. He said, "Since I've come to this world and want to reach the peak, I should use this world as my foundation. Without enough understanding, it is absolutely impossible. Whether it is the unique techniques of this world or the more powerful Taoist scriptures, in the end, they all belong to others. Only when I truly master them and use them to comprehend my own unique techniques, will it be my Tao." Mysterious and mysterious. Chen Hao, who was immersed in comprehending the use of the space attribute's true essence, had a trace of understanding in his mind. Along with the clear appearance of this trace of understanding, Chen Hao's aura quietly underwent a slight change. This change, even Chen Hao did not notice. But the mysterious existence that was immersed in the depths of his mind suddenly woke up at this moment. At this moment, he clearly sensed that Chen Hao's cultivation state and path had undergone a shocking change, as if there was a feeling that it was completely out of his understanding and control. This feeling made him shocked and worried at the same time, but at the same time, he also faintly had a trace of anticipation. Although his usefulness might be greatly reduced in the future, or even become dispensable after experiencing countless masters, the cultivation path that was like repeating over and over again had already made him lose interest. Perhaps Chen Hao, who seemed to develop the slowest and weakest among all his masters, would bring him a brand new journey. "Chen Hao, I'm done." You've already comprehended the space attribute's true essence? Just as Chen Hao was floating among the clouds, faintly mobilizing all the clouds, Chen Shui, after 6 hours of hard work, finally mastered the use of all the space attributes' true essence contained in the lake water. Appearing above the lake water, she shouted to the sky with a trace of shock in her eyes as she looked at Chen Hao, who had merged into the clouds. "You have to hurry up, otherwise, it won't be long before I catch up again." Whoosh! As soon as Chen Shui's voice fell, Chen Hao's figure flashed, as if penetrating through the void, and directly appeared in front of Chen Shui with a confident smile on his lips. Don't even think about it. My space attribute's true essence has already advanced to the small perfection realm. It's still early for you. Without 7 days, you can forget about passing through the lake water at the peak. What if I catch up with you? Then I'll let you comprehend first, then I'll comprehend later. Chen Shui said, Don't waste time, there's only 1 month. If you keep waiting like this, it's not good for either of us. This is a rare opportunity. If you care too much about these red tape, it will only affect your state of mind. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he did not say anything more on this issue and directly plunged into the lake water. The corners of Chen Shui's mouth curled up slightly as she thought to herself, Well said. If I were a man, I would say the same. This grotto heaven is based on the space attribute's true essence, and it's my domain of expertise. If I lose to you again... Chen Shui suddenly stopped mid-sentence and did not continue speaking. She shook her head, threw away all distracting thoughts, and directly rushed to the platform thousands of feet below. Third update, a chapter to make up for what I owe. That's the third update today. Thank you to the brothers who voted and tipped. Thank you. I've let everyone down. I'll cover my face and escape. Continue to work hard. Strive to repay it as soon as possible. Calm to vote. Chapter 281. Hiss. The moment Chen Hao dived into the lake, although he was already mentally prepared, the whirlpool that far exceeded his own space attribute realm almost instantly made him fall into a state of helplessness. However, sensing the pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the true essence of space attribute, and the strange rotation of the whirlpool, not only did Chen Hao not resist, but he also quickly took off his clothes and immersed himself in enlightenment, allowing himself to rotate and float in the whirlpool. What an exquisite space attribute technique! What dense space attribute mysteries and spiritual energy of heaven and earth! Chen Hao clearly felt that he was enveloped by an even more profound space attribute mystery, and every cell in his body was absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the spring at an astonishing speed. But what surprised Chen Hao even more was the technique of using the space attribute contained in the whirlpool. As expected of a cultivation holy land. Not to mention a month, even a day can be greatly benefited. If I can use this space attribute mystery in the platinum sky-splitting slash, it will definitely increase its power by a lot. If I combine the platinum sky-splitting slash with the solitary sword technique, what kind of power will it have? Chen Hao thought excitedly in his heart. The platinum sky-splitting slash was one of the Taoist techniques of the Great Five Elements art. It was also the only technique that Chen Hao could cultivate among the 3,000 great Taoists recorded in the Taoist canon. In the outside world, with Chen Hao's current strength, he could only use it 3 times before exhausting his true essence. It was extremely difficult to cultivate. But in this small lake, the pure energy of heaven and earth in the spring could allow Chen Hao to be in peak condition at all times. What did this mean? It meant that Chen Hao's efficiency in cultivating the platinum sky-splitting slash here would definitely be more than 100 or 1,000 times stronger than outside. After all, if he used it 3 times in the outside world, he would have to swallow a large amount of elixirs and meditate to adjust his breathing, and he would definitely not be able to recover to peak condition without 4 hours. But now, he did not have such scruples. This is great. I'm not in a hurry to break through this first stage. When I completely master the technique of using the space attribute and comprehend it to the same realm, I'll practice my sword here. With the obstruction of the whirlpool, it's more suitable than the 7-star grotto heaven. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. While in the small lake on the platform 10,000 feet below, Chen Shui had finally completed the second stage. She still didn't know about Chen Hao's situation, so as a precaution, she put on her clothes at the bottom of the lake and rushed out of the small lake. Boom boom boom, walla walla, Why is there such a huge commotion? What surprised Chen Shui was that there were terrifying roars coming from the peak of the mountain. Numerous water arrows shot up to a height of a few hundred feet, like numerous water dragons that scattered in all directions. Could it be that he isn't comprehending but resisting? This idiot. Whoosh. Chen Shui instantly turned into a stream of light, as if she had teleported. In the next moment she appeared on the peak. However, as soon as Chen Shui stepped forward, she cried out in surprise and instantly retreated. She looked away and blushed. Chen Hao, what are you doing? Sword training. Chen Hao laughed loudly, and he seemed to be extremely excited as he spoke. At this moment, Chen Hao only wore a pair of shorts. When Chen Shui went up, he just happened to shoot up into the sky with the 5-element sword in hand, and his body emitted a profound and terrifying aura. Sword training? This spirit spring lake is for you to comprehend the profundities of the spatial attribute and utilize it. Aren't you wasting your time? Chen Shui calmed her shy mood and turned around to look at the shirtless Chen Hao as she spoke. I've already comprehended it a day ago. Quickly start on the next level, don't worry about me. Swoosh. Chen Hao plunged into the lake once more. What surprised Chen Shui was that Chen Hao actually didn't follow the circulation of the whirlpool, but went against the flow and blasted out with his sword. A strand of terrifying, profound, and peerlessly fierce sword intent shot up into the sky, and it caused Chen Shui's mind to tremble even though they were a few hundred meters apart. What kind of secret technique is this? Chen Shui said in surprise. In a short period of less than 6 days, Chen Shui's cultivation had already risen to the peak of the nascent soul stage, and her comprehension of the spatial attributes' profundities had completely stabilized at the perfection stage. Her combat strength had absolutely increased by more than 2 times compared to before stepping into the small-scale grotto heaven. But at this moment, when she sensed the might of Chen Hao's sword, she shockingly discovered that if Chen Hao used this sword to attack her, it was absolutely not something she could withstand. Chen Hao had only just advanced to the peak of the golden core stage. How is it? Is it powerful? After Chen Hao slashed apart several whirlpools with his sword, he floated in the air above the lake, and his peerlessly handsome face was filled with a natural wisp of arrogance as he spoke. Powerful? Is this the secret technique of your star-picking sect? Chen Shui couldn't help but ask. No. But do you want to learn it? Yes, Chen Shui said without hesitation. Although she was a little embarrassed, it was only a little. No matter what, she was still Chen Hao's sister, wasn't she? They were family, so how could she treat him like an outsider? Besides, Chen Shui could sense that if she could learn Chen Hao's sword, her combat strength would definitely increase by several times. This was not the time to be polite. No problem. I'll teach you now. How much you can comprehend and whether you can master it or not will depend on yourself. Do you have a jade slip? As Chen Hao spoke, he directly appeared beside Chen Shui and put on his Taoist robe at the same time. Although he wasn't naked, Chen Hao didn't mind facing Chen Shui bare-chested, but he was afraid that Chen Shui would feel uncomfortable. Yes, Chen Shui said a little excitedly. Although she was his sister, she didn't expect Chen Hao to be so straightforward. After all, in the world of cultivation, no cultivator would easily impart their secret technique to others. As he spoke, he took out a jade slip. Once a cultivator entered the golden core stage, they could use their mind to leave their will and pressure in the jade slip. The secret technique stored in the jade slip came from this. Chen Hao received the jade slip. His mind moved and powerful mind energy poured into it. In an instant his entire aura underwent a shocking change. Obviously, if Chen Hao wanted to truly fuse the ultimate technique into the jade slip, then he had to allow his mind to fuse into the mental state he had when he executed the ultimate technique. Only in this way would Chen Shui be able to comprehend even more from the jade slip. A moment later, Chen Hao passed the jade slip to Chen Shui and said, "This secret technique is formed by fusing 2 secret techniques. How to fuse them is up to you to comprehend it yourself. I can only impart the most basic to you. The first is the solitary sword art. It has a total of 9 moves. You should know that my sword moves have always been without moves. This was the strength of the solitary sword art. Everything in the world, including cultivation techniques and array formations, can't be perfect. There must be flaws and weaknesses. And the solitary sword art is precisely the flaw attack. Just comprehending this alone can let your combat strength increase greatly. As for what degree you can unleash, it will depend on how deep your comprehension is. Varies from person to person. The second type is the Great 5 Elements Art's basic cultivation technique, Platinum Sky-Splitting Slash. This is my strongest attack right now. What? Great 5 Elements Art? Chen Hao's description of the solitary sword art already made Chen Shui abnormally excited. But what made Chen Shui even more surprised was that the second type was actually the Great 5 Elements art. This was the legendary 3000 Great Tao. How could Chen Shui still endure it? That's right. How did you obtain it? Chen Shui could not resist asking. Secret. Chen Hao smiled slightly and said mysteriously. After a slight pause, he continued, Platinum Sky-Splitting Slash is the most ferocious basic cultivation technique in the Great 5 Elements art. In the outside world, with my current strength, I can only execute it 3 times before exhausting all my energy. Therefore, unless it's a last resort situation, I absolutely cannot execute it. This is a life-saving ultimate move. You're no exception. The reason why I'm practicing the sword here is because the spirit spring can let me be in peak condition at all times. After you've comprehended both the solitary sword art and platinum sky-splitting slash, you can try to fuse the 2 mental cultivation techniques into one. At the same time, you can also fuse the mysteries of space into it. The power will exceed your imagination. I'll try. Chen Hao said it casually, but Chen Shui was clear that for any mental cultivation technique to fuse with another type, without going through countless trials and tribulations, it was basically not very possible. Even people with extremely high comprehension ability would find it difficult to do. Moreover, the slightest carelessness would result in a backlash. Alright, make the best use of the time to cultivate. You decide whether to cultivate the sword art or comprehend the mysteries of this grotto. A total of 1 month's time is probably far from enough. Chen Shui responded and said, Thank you. No need to thank me. Before Father appears, I should temporarily take care of you on behalf of Father. No matter what, we're a family. Chen Hao smiled slightly and said, Finished speaking, not giving Chen Shui, who had a conflicted expression, to say anything, he directly dived into the lake. What temporary father taking care of me? I'm elder sister. Seeing Chen Hao dive into the lake, Chen Shui curled her lips and said. Then, a wisp of a sweet smile appeared on the corners of her mouth, and a different kind of warmth rippled out in her heart. Since she was young, she simply did not enjoy any familial affection until she met her master, who was also her mother. But all along, the relationship between her and her master was only that of a master and disciple, and she simply did not think that she was her master's daughter. How could she experience familial affection? But these words of Chen Hao made her feel warm, a warmth that she had never felt before. Yes, a family. If they were not a family, who would be able to pass on the ultimate technique that cultivators yearned for even in their dreams? If they were not a family, who would be able to disregard their own safety and sacrifice for the other? Chen Hao had sacrificed for her, but hadn't she sacrificed for Chen Hao as well? Holding the jade slip in her hand, Chen Shui's figure flashed and arrived at the 3rd stage. She did not directly jump into the lake on the platform, but instead sat cross-legged and merged her mind into the jade slip. Boom! The will that Chen Hao left behind immediately transmitted the mantras of the solitary sword technique and the platinum sky-piercing slash into her mind. At the same time, at the moment when the jade slip shattered, the figure of Chen Hao dancing with the sword appeared in Chen Shui's mind, and she sensed the state of mind contained in Chen Hao's every move and style. Phew! It's simply impossible to completely comprehend it in a short period of time. Looks like I can only cultivate after I go out. Otherwise, a month's time will be wasted. After a moment, Chen Shui opened her eyes and muttered. After saying that, she directly rushed into the even more mysterious lake. First update. Chapter 282. On the 7th day of entering the small cultivation grotto heaven. Break. The small lake with a diameter of 3,000 feet was split into two by Chen Hao's sword. Under the mysterious and sharp sword light, the entire lake was forcibly split into two distinct pieces. However, it only lasted for a short 2 seconds before it was broken by the crazily spinning vortex, and the two pieces merged into one again. Phew! Chen Hao let out a long breath. His eyes shone with joy as he thought to himself, the solitary sword technique, platinum sky-splitting slash, and space attribute mystery have merged into one. The power of this sword is 5 times stronger than the pure platinum sky-splitting slash. I used it skillfully and used less than 1/6 of the energy. This means that even in the outside world, I can still use 6 sword moves. It's better to practice here. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time. Next level. Chen Hao turned into a ray of light and appeared in the small lake thousands of feet below. If he had enough time, Chen Hao would not have entered the next level so quickly. However, the small cultivation grotto heaven only had a month's time. If he wanted to get the most out of it, Chen Hao could only challenge the second level, which was more powerful. Splash, splash. Boom, boom, boom. The 1,000-foot waterfall flowed down from the top of the mountain. Its aura alone was many times stronger than the small lake at the top of the mountain. The outer sky waterfall of the star-picking sect could not be compared to this. The terrifying vortexes were filled with endless power, as if they could devour everything. With just a glance, Chen Hao discovered that this level was much stronger than the first level, whether it was the realm of the space attribute's true essence or the way it operated. Taking a deep breath, Chen Hao dived into the lake naked. The space attribute mystery at the peak of the initial level. The moment he floated in the whirlpool like a rootless duckweed, Chen Hao was sure that the space attribute mystery contained in this lake was much stronger than the first level. The power and mystery contained in the whirlpool were also more terrifying. However, with the experience of the first floor, the pressure on Chen Hao was not as terrifying as Chen Hao had imagined. It seems like the time limit of the cultivation grotto heaven is quite reasonable. Everything was difficult at the beginning, and only the first level required the most time. Passing through all 9 levels was not difficult at all. Furthermore, the profound mysteries of the space attribute contained within it should be limited by the number of levels. Otherwise, no matter how talented one is, it would be difficult for one to pass through all 9 levels. Chen Hao immersed himself in the comprehension and operation of the vortex and began to comprehend once again. Brother Yu, it's done. On the 27th day after Chen Hao and Qin Shui stepped into the miniature grotto heaven, 5 figures gathered together. They were none other than Yu Chengfeng and Han Ji from the Southern Sea Archipelago. At this moment, Han Ji had a confident smile on his face as he said, "Everything within 1,000 feet is under my array. As long as that woman comes out, she will definitely fall into my array. If Jian Wufei and the other 2 come over, they will not be an exception." Brother Yu, you can sense it. Hearing Han Ji's words, Yu Chengfeng and the other 3 immediately released their senses. A moment later, Yu Chengfeng's face revealed a look of praise as he said, "Not bad, even with my senses, I can't sense any aura at all. Brother Han, you are indeed a little divine armament. Brother Yu, you flatter me. This array talent is only a small matter compared to my talent, it's not worth mentioning," Han Ji said without hesitation. He was not being humble but speaking the truth. In less than a month's time in Sky City, although they did not enter the miniature grotto heaven, the strength of the 5 of them had increased by quite a bit. Han Ji originally thought that his improvement was great, but when he sensed Yu Chengfeng's aura, he realized that he was nothing. Although Yu Chengfeng's half-step nascent soul cultivation level did not increase at all, his entire aura had become sharper. The murderous intent that he unconsciously let out made Han Ji and the others tremble in fear. One had to know that they were all top geniuses and their cultivation level was 1 level higher than Yu Chengfeng's. What did this mean? It meant that Yu Chengfeng, who was half-step nascent soul, could easily kill them. This kind of killing was not something that normal cultivators could do. Gasp. Boom. On the 27th day, a few hundred miles away from Yu Chengfeng and the others, A mountain with a diameter of 1,000 feet was suddenly cut in half by a bright sword ray. The moment it was cut in half, there was only a slight sound of something breaking through the air. The entire mountain only sank down a few centimeters. But then, the top half of the mountain exploded with a loud boom. The sky was filled with rocks and debris. Like a swarm of locusts, they contained the power to destroy the heavens and the earth as they shot into the sky. Impressive. A figure who had just arrived was extremely shocked as he stared at Jian Wufei, who was a few hundred feet away. His heart was filled with shock. This figure was Liao Guangye. Liao Guangye instantly flew to Jian Wufei's side and stared at the smooth surface of the mountain that had been cut in half. His voice was filled with shock as he said, "Wufei, you have cultivated the 4th level of the Mountain River Sword technique?" Peak of the 4th level. Jian Wufei slowly sheathed her sword and said coldly. Her beautiful face shone with a hint of pride. This city in the sky is indeed a holy land for cultivation. It's beyond my imagination. Not only have I cultivated the Mountain River Sword technique to the peak of the 4th level, my Mountain River Sword technique has also reached the peak of the early stage of the Great Completion. Now, it doesn't matter if Liao Guangye and Jian Wufei are here or not. I alone am enough. But just in case, I'll bring them along. Jian Wufei thought to herself. Thinking about Yu Qingfeng's terrifying attacks, she was not sure how much Yu Qingfeng had improved in this month. Not long after, another cultivator rushed over as well. "Let's go," Jian Wufei said and flew up. "Hide your aura. This time, we have to make sure nothing goes wrong. It'll be best if we can kill Yu Qingfeng and the others first. Then we just have to deal with that woman from the eastern continent. Plus, they definitely know that we won't give up. Maybe they're already waiting for us." Wait. When the 3 of them were dozens of miles away from the gate, they saw Yu Qingfeng and the others from afar. This caused Jian Wufei to stop. "What's wrong?" Liao Guangye and Jian Wufei asked in confusion. "It's a little strange. Yu Qingfeng's battle power is about the same as mine. He shouldn't be so brazen. Otherwise, what happened last time might happen again and that woman escaped. If I were him, I would definitely hide my tracks. It would be best if he could kill me in one fell swoop," Jian Wufei said with a frown. She came from an ordinary background and could be said to be a nobody at the bottom of the food chain. To be able to reach her current position, she had experienced countless life and death situations. She had experience and survival skills that other disciples did not have. Her survival skills were definitely not something an ordinary person could compare to. "Wufei, you mean there's a trap?" Liao Guangye said with a frown. Swordsman Wufei frowned and nodded. "How can this trick fool me? You guys just wait here. I'll go check it out and make a decision." As Jian Wufei spoke, her aura completely disappeared in front of the 2 of them. Her entire body seemed to have turned into a river. Evidently, she had used the River Mountain Sword Dao's special ability. She was the River Mountain and the River Mountain was her. Although they could see her figure, they could no longer sense her aura. If she still hasn't come out, Jian Wufei must have seen through something. Whatever, I don't believe that she can still hold back when that pretty girl comes out. We'll just take her down then. On the 30th day, seeing that the time of the small cultivation cave was getting closer and closer, and Jian Wufei and the others still had not appeared, Yu Qingfeng said casually, "Walla walla." Rumble rumble. Inside the cave, in the small lake at the foot of the mountain, Chen Hao stood right under the waterfall with his upper body bared. His body withstood the waterfall that was 90,000 feet high. His streamlined muscles glowed with a sparkling, blood-red luster. From Chen Hao's expression, one could tell that the pressure he was withstanding right now was unimaginable to ordinary people. Chen Shui, who had already completed the 9 tests and raised her space element to the early stage of the Great Completion stage, stood by the lake and stared at Chen Hao. Her eyes were filled with shock. Only now did she truly understand how monstrous Chen Hao was. He was not someone she could compare to. Whether it was comprehension or cultivation talent, he was much higher than her. Especially his physical body talent, it was at an unimaginable level. Who could withstand a waterfall 90,000 feet tall? Not to mention the high density of the spirit spring, even normal water was enough to kill a peak golden core realm expert. As for Qin Hao, he had actually been cultivating under the waterfall for an entire day. Puff! Finally, Qin Hao, whose body seemed to be emitting a bloody light, could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Immediately, his figure flashed and flew out of the waterfall. He came to Chen Shui's side as if nothing had happened and said, "Finished? Yes. Why did you leave it for me?" Chen Shui looked at the shirtless Chen Hao and asked. She was already a little used to it. At the 8th stage, Chen Hao had already surpassed her and entered the last stage first. But Chen Hao clearly comprehended the mystery of the pool water, but he did not go to the bottom of the lake to check. It's the same whoever gets it. I was in a hurry to cultivate, so how could I care so much? What did you get? Chen Hao asked curiously. A high-grade spirit artifact sword that contains the law of space. The name of the sword is Sky Smasher. And the Heaven-class high-grade sword technique, Sky Smasher sword technique, and 100 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. Chen Shui said as she took out the sword technique, and the 100 supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. The sword is yours. I will cultivate the sword technique first, then I will pass it to you. As for the supreme-grade primordial crystal stones, let's split it in half, okay? Chen Hao said directly after glancing at it. I can have the sword, but you can have the supreme-grade primordial crystal stones. I don't lack primordial crystal stones. As for the sword technique, we will do as you say. Your comprehension is a little better than mine. Qin Shui said. There is still 2 more hours before we have to leave. Unfortunately, I can't take this spirit spring with me. Let's recover to our best condition first and prepare for battle. I can't wait any longer. Chen Hao put away the top-grade primal crystal stones and the secret technique jade slip into his storage space without hesitation, and his peerlessly handsome face flickered with a wisp of excitement and faint arrogance as he spoke. After he finished speaking, he dived into the lake again. Second update. Today is the second update. I have something to do tonight. Everyone, don't worry about Dark Mountain not paying back the debt. Within a month, Dark Mountain will definitely pay back the debt. Chapter 283. Then Chen Shui jumped into the lake as well. She knew that once they walked out of the grotto heaven, they would face an unavoidable battle. Their opponents were all geniuses from the southern sea islands and the western continent. One side had 5 people, the other side had 3 people. She and Chen Hao were only 2 people. Even though the 2 of them had improved a lot in this month, it was still unknown if they could win. Also, because they entered the grotto heaven, they might face the combined attacks of their opponents. Now that I've reached the peak of the early nascent soul stage, my mastery of the space element has reached the peak of the early nascent soul stage, and my mastery of the chaotic thunder sword has reached the 5th level, sky-piercing thunder. With the addition of the sky-shattering sword, I'll be able to infuse the space element into it and its power will definitely be doubled. With this kind of strength, I should have a 70% chance of defeating Jian Wufei. Chen Shui thought to herself. She had seen Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng's terrifying battle strength. Even though the 2 of them were half a step away from the nascent soul realm, Jian Wufei had already condensed her elemental sword intent. As for Yu Qingfeng, his folding fan was even more shocking. It was obvious that he had reached the peak of the initial stage of the wind element. No matter who it was, the 2 of them were not easy to deal with. Plus, they had partners who were equally terrifying. Even though the others were weaker than Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng, they were all top geniuses. In a battle of life and death, no one could be sure how strong they would be. Especially the super geniuses from the southern sea islands. Most of them had ancient bloodlines. No matter how Chen Shui thought about it, she didn't think that she and Chen Hao had a high chance of winning. The only thing she was sure of was that with their state of mind and their understanding of the space element, it wouldn't be hard for them to survive. That was enough. Half an hour later, Chen Hao and Chen Shui stepped out of the lake at the same time. Chen Shui saw the excitement and confidence on Chen Hao's face and couldn't help but ask, Chen Hao, how confident are you? I said, they will all die. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng are very strong. Jian Wufei had comprehended an elemental sword Dao and her cultivation level was very high. One of them has comprehended the quintessence of the wind attribute to the pinnacle of initial mastery, and his body contains the legacy of the ancient era's bloodline. It's still unclear how strong he is. Just these two alone are already difficult for us to kill, let alone the other 5. Indeed, the attacks of those two fellows were indeed very strong. In a month's time in Sky City, he might even be able to improve. However, I'm a dead person now. Chen Hao looked at Chen Shui, the corners of his mouth slightly raised as he spoke. If Chen Hao had a 10% chance of success, he would dare to try, let alone a 100% chance of success. However, this did not mean that Chen Hao would stupidly fight against 8 super geniuses with just the 2 of them. As long as he could make use of all the factors that were beneficial to the battle, he would not hesitate to use them. You mean a sneak attack? What Chen Shui was most worried about was that the arrogant Chen Hao would fight the other party openly. But now, seeing the expression on Chen Hao's face, Chen Shui heaved a sigh of relief. This Chen Hao was undoubtedly the most terrifying Chen Hao. That's right. They definitely think that I'm dead. When we go out later, I'll conceal myself and you'll appear in front of them. Okay. They're coming out. Don't activate the array for now. Wait for Jian Wufei and the other 2 to attack. Yu Qingfeng said confidently. In these 2 days, he had already investigated. Although he did not find Jian Wufei and the other 2, he was certain that the 3 of them were waiting nearby. He did not believe that Jian Wufei would be able to hold back when he took down Chen Shui. Idiot. What Yu Qingfeng and the others did not expect was that even though their conversation was limited to a small area, it still did not escape Jian Wufei's ears. They also did not expect Jian Wufei to be within a few hundred feet of them. The world only knows that my Mountain River Sword technique is peerless, but they don't know that the Mountain River Sword technique's strongest point is concealment. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm limited by my cultivation level, it would be easy for me to kill you all. Jian Wufei thought. She was only half-step nascent soul. Although the Mountain River Sword technique's concealment effect was strong, she did not dare to get too close. After all, she was only concealing her aura and not her body. In this area that was already empty, there was nowhere to hide. Otherwise, she would have attacked already. I wonder what kind of expression you'll have when I break your array? Jian Wufei's beautiful face revealed a trace of evil and smugness. She was not proficient in arrays, but before it was activated, she could still break it. Any array formation needed energy crystals to operate. Han Ji's array was no exception. Although the auras of the energy crystals were all hidden, it wasn't difficult for Jian Wufei to dig them out since she knew of the existence of the array formation. Moreover, she had already finished this task a day ago. She just did not destroy it. This was because she knew that if she destroyed any of the energy crystals, Han Ji, who had set up the array, would notice. So, she could only attack when Chen Shui was about to come out of the grotto heaven. Otherwise, after the other party captured Chen Shui, it would be difficult to snatch the treasure from Yu Qingfeng's hands. This was because she could feel that Yu Qingfeng's strength had increased by quite a bit. Jian Wufei was not sure if she could defeat him. If he wanted to escape after getting the treasure, she would not be able to stop him. Time was ticking by. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng were both determined to win. However, they did not consider Chen Hao and Chen Shui. Instead, they saw each other as their biggest opponents. In their eyes, Chen Shui was a lamb destined to be slaughtered. The only thing that mattered was who could obtain it. SSSS. Jian Wufei and Yu Qingfeng's gazes locked onto where the door to the grotto heaven appeared and their auras were released without restraint. Finally, there was a violent ripple in the air. The door to the grotto heaven was about to open. Chen Shui was about to be ejected. Not good. What shocked Yu Qingfeng and the others was that at this moment, Han Ji's expression suddenly changed. What's wrong? Yu Qingfeng asked with a frown. Haha. At this moment, Jian Wufei's proud laughter suddenly sounded. Accompanied by a terrifying aura, Her figure appeared in front of Yu Qingfeng and the others. Whoosh whoosh. Meanwhile, Liao Guangye and the other disciple were flying toward them from 1,000 zhang away at a shocking pace. Boom. At this moment, a terrifying energy storm erupted in the air as the door to the grotto heaven opened. Jian Wufei did not hesitate. She stabbed out with her sword and attacked Yu Qingfeng. The brilliant sword light contained a terrifying sword intent. There was no other way. Yu Qingfeng and the others had already gathered near the door to the grotto heaven. She could not rob Qin Shui immediately. Therefore, the only thing she could do was to stop Yu Qingfeng and the others. Bitch, you think you can stop me? Break for me. Boom. With a wave of his fan, a 1,000-foot-long wind dragon containing a monstrous aura flew towards Jian Wufei's terrifying attack. The four of you quickly take down that girl. At the same time, Yu Qingfeng ordered. Yu Qingfeng had no choice. Jian Wufei's sword contained a power that he had to deal with all his strength. He had no time to deal with Qin Shui. Brother Yu, don't worry. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Han Ji and the others instantly charged towards Qin Shui, who had just appeared. At this moment, Liao Guangye and the other disciple also charged over and sent out their strongest attacks towards the four of them. Liao Guangye and the other disciple did the same as Jian Wufei and stopped the four of them from approaching Qin Shui. The scene uncontrollably returned to the scene before Qin Shui and Qin Hao stepped into the grotto heaven. Boom boom boom. It was also at this moment that the entire space began to tremble violently, and a mysterious aura drifted over. The 1-month spatial barrier of Sky City had officially been opened, which also meant that all the barriers that were divided into regions according to strength and potential no longer existed. The true danger of the trial was about to begin. Han Ji, the three of you block those two for me. I'll take down this woman. The barrier has already opened. If more experts come, it will be even more difficult. We have to hurry. Among the 5 disciples of the Southern Sea Islands, the one whose strength was second only to Yu Qingfeng said sternly to Han Ji and the others. This guy was called Shangguan Yang. But Han Ji and the others didn't hesitate and directly influenced Liao Guangye and the other disciple. They all knew that Shangguan Yang was right. With their talent, battle strength, and potential, they were definitely not far away from the late nascent soul stage experts, or even the peak of the late nascent soul stage. The main reason they were able to come here was because of their potential. Once some mid or late nascent soul stage experts came, it would undoubtedly be even more difficult to obtain the treasures on Qin Shui. No way. Qin Hao, who had merged with the world, was hiding beside Qin Shui and was a little shocked. Qin Shui also had a strange expression. They originally thought that they would have to face a terrifying attack as soon as they came out. They didn't expect that Yu Qingfeng and Jian Wufei's group would be unharmed and would be in a fierce battle again. They're underestimating us. Chen Hao said to Qin Shui through voice transmission. Let's end this quickly. We have to leave here before the other experts come. Qin Shui said through voice transmission. Her aura instantly became extremely cold. However, she didn't use the sky-shattering sword. Moreover, it didn't seem to be very powerful. Little girl, do you still want to resist? Just give up and you won't have to suffer any physical pain. If brother Yu didn't choose you, I, Shangguan Yang, could kill you with one move. Capture her. Shangguan Yang said arrogantly. His strength was second only to Yu Qingfeng, and he sensed the fluctuation of Qin Shui's aura. He was absolutely confident that he could capture Qin Shui alive. First update. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it on Qidian.com. Chapter 284. This Shangguan Yang condensed a true essence giant hand with a radius of 30 meters and directly covered Qin Shui. This true essence giant hand not only contained 100% of Shangguan Yang's strength but also the aura of an ancient bloodline. The moment it was released, the energy of heaven and earth madly gathered towards the giant hand. Qin Shui could clearly feel the terrifying pressure contained in the giant hand. Obviously, although Shangguan Yang was arrogant, he was not careless at all. Although Qin Shui's aura was not strong, at this critical moment, He had to do his best to subdue Chen Shui as quickly as possible. Only by taking Chen Shui's treasures could he be at ease. At that time, he could attack or retreat. It was not too important whether he could kill the 3 people from the Western continent or not. My dragon-capturing giant handprint is a heaven-level technique. In this sky city, it can mobilize more spiritual energy of heaven and earth. With your strength, it's useless to resist. This dragon-capturing giant handprint was not a simple offensive technique. Under normal circumstances, it was used by powerful people to capture weak opponents alive. It could mobilize the energy of heaven and earth for one's own use. Although Shangguan Yang felt that Chen Shui's aura was not as strong as his, before he used the dragon-capturing giant handprint, he did not expect to subdue Chen Shui in one move. However, at this moment, to his surprise, the extremely rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Sky City actually allowed his dragon-capturing giant handprint to exert twice the power of the outside world. Thunderclap 9th Heaven, break. Clang. Crack. Seeing that the true essence giant hand was only 30 meters away from her and had firmly locked onto her aura, Chen Shui, who seemed to be weak, suddenly shouted and pulled out her sword in one breath. The high-grade spiritual weapon, the sky-shattering sword, suddenly emitted thousands of rays of light, and the 4th level of the chaos sword technique, the Thunderclap 9th Heaven, was released. Rumble. When the true essence giant hand and the thunderous sword light met, there was a terrifying roar, and the true essence giant hand and the thunderous sword light disappeared at the same time. Chen Shui, who was dressed in a blue dress, had a cold light in her eyes. Her body swayed, and she raised her sword at a moderate speed and rushed toward Shangguan Yang. At the same time, Chen Shui's body exuded a kind of fleeting spatial aura, as if she could break through space at any time, making it impossible to lock onto her. A high-grade spiritual weapon? Good. I didn't expect you to be able to break my dragon-capturing giant handprint. Good timing. Do you think you can hide the true essence of the space attribute from me? Shangguan Yang instantly released his mind power to the maximum and fixed his eyes on Chen Shui. He was well aware that Chen Shui, who had become one with his sword and carried a spatial attribute aura, would very likely change his trajectory and deliver a fatal blow the moment he got close to him. Moreover, Chen Shui had a high-grade spirit sword in her possession. How could he dare to be careless? Die! Suddenly, when Chen Shui was still several hundred feet away from him, she actually lightly shook the sky-shattering sword, sending out an attack that could not be considered anything at all. At this moment, Shangguan Yang didn't feel any threat at all, but his intuition of danger, which was honed in life-or-death situations, made his hair stand on end. Without any hesitation, he gathered all his strength and struck out with his palm. He even stopped defending himself. Anyway, Chen Shui was right in front of him, so he could beat her back first. However, the moment Shangguan Yang withdrew his protective genuine essence and struck out with his palm, a silent sword light pierced through his head without any warning. He didn't even have time to scream. At the same time, Chen Shui's figure suddenly disappeared in the void. What? How is that possible? Although Yu Chengfeng and the others were fighting, they were all paying attention to Chen Shui, especially Jian Wufei. At this moment, they were at a disadvantage because of the lack of manpower. Therefore, when Shangguan Yang tried to capture Chen Shui alone, she was already prepared. Once Shangguan Yang succeeded, she would not hesitate to take a blow from Yu Chengfeng to kill him. Yu Chengfeng naturally understood the situation. He exerted his cultivation to the maximum to hold back Jian Wufei, who was very powerful. As long as Shangguan Yang succeeded, they were destined to win. However, they had never thought that it would end like this. What surprised them more was that Shangguan Yang's death was not caused by Chen Shui at all. Even though they did not catch Chen Hao's aura, Chen Hao still exposed his existence when he killed Shangguan Yang. This guy is actually still alive. We can't let them escape. At this moment, Jian Wufei and Yu Chengfeng tacitly avoided each other. Their figures flashed, and they suddenly dashed out in 2 different directions. Before they arrived, their terrifying will and strong killing intent covered the sky and the earth. Two strange spatial fluctuations as fast as lightning dashed towards Liao Guangye, Han Ji, and the others who were also shocked and had stopped fighting. Heavenly thunder. Platinum's sky-splitting cut. Although Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei were fast, Chen Hao and Chen Shui were even faster, especially Chen Shui, who had comprehended the space property to the peak of the first stage of the greater mastery. It was as if she had teleported. She was even faster than Chen Hao. She appeared above Han Ji and performed the 5th level of the chaotic thunder sword. As for Chen Hao, he performed his most powerful attack, the platinum sky-splitting cut. This. Two completely different sounds suddenly appeared while Han Ji, Liao Guangye, and the others were still in shock. One of them was like a heavenly thunder that contained destructive power. Han Ji, who was the weakest in the group, did not have time to resist at all. He could not resist at all and was directly smashed into pieces. On the other hand, Chen Hao's platinum sky-splitting cut seemed to have transcended the restraints of space. No one could stop it or resist it. Fast, ruthless, sharp, condensed. In an instant, it caused the world to lose its color. All sounds seemed to disappear and time seemed to stop. The sword light that was about 300 feet long was like a waterfall that turned into a light curtain that cut through everything in the world. Liao Guangye let out a terrified scream. He did not have time to resist at all. He could only watch as his headless body fell down and blood spurted out. He simply could not believe that this was real. At the same time, one of the other two was cut in half at the waist and the other was cut in half at the heart. The guy who was cut in half at the heart only let out a scream before he stopped moving. As for the guy who was cut in half at the waist, he continued to scream miserably. I can't die, I can't die. I don't want to die. Brother Yu, save me. Kid, tell me your name. Tell me, who are you in the Yuan Gate? Yu Qingfeng looked at Chen Hao, who was standing proudly without hiding his tracks. His face was so twisted that it no longer resembled a human's as he gritted his teeth and spoke. Jian Wufei's brows were tightly furrowed. She tightly gripped the sword in her hand. Her gaze was extremely serious as she stared coldly at Chen Hao. She was clearly much calmer than Yu Qingfeng. Her terrifying aura was still locked onto Chen Hao and Chen Shui's aura. She transmitted her voice. Yu Qingfeng, let's kill them together and split the loot equally. How about it? This kid was able to kill those pieces of trash with one strike. Although he caught them off guard, he is definitely not weaker than us. He might even have a trump card. That woman is not weak either. Okay. Yu Qingfeng's eyes flashed with a strong sense of viciousness as he spoke. At this point, his pride as the #1 inner sect disciple of the Southern Sea Islands had been crushed by Jian Wufei. It was not that Jian Wufei was stronger than him, but that the geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands were not something that the Western and Eastern continents could compare to. However, Jian Wufei was not inferior to him at all. And this Chen Hao, who he thought was dead for sure, had just displayed an attack that even he had to be careful of. Therefore, he had no choice but to join forces with Jian Wufei. In his opinion, Chen Hao was definitely a super genius of the Eastern continent's strongest sect, the Yuan Gate. To be able to survive, he naturally had to have a sacred healing medicine. Don't say it. Chen Shui hurriedly transmitted her voice to Chen Hao to stop him. She was very clear that Yu Chengfeng and Jian Wufei were both top geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands and the Western continent. In Sky City, there were definitely many peak late nascent soul realm and even half-step incarnation realm senior brothers and sisters of the same sect. Moreover, it was very likely that they had communication talismans between them. Once the other party knew their names, they would most likely be hunted down endlessly. However, Chen Hao smiled slightly. After glancing at Chen Shui, he proudly said, Yuan Gate? Sorry, I have nothing to do with the Yuan Gate. Seeing that you are about to die, I don't mind telling you my name. I am Chen Hao, merely a disciple of a third-rank sect in the Eastern continent. Chen Shui frowned slightly and didn't say anything else. Since Chen Hao did this, he naturally believed in his own strength. Moreover, doing this would undoubtedly be beneficial to his elusive fortune. Moreover, he would be able to fight to his heart's content without leaving any inner demons. This was indeed the case. Chen Hao had been cultivating crazily for a month. Whether it was his strength or his cultivation level, Chen Hao had improved tremendously. Just now, he had killed 3 people with a single slash, which made him feel very good. Under the rising battle intent, the arrogance in his bones completely exploded. His laughter was like thunder from the 9 heavens, shaking the surroundings. His entire mood was much more carefree. The power of the platinum sky-splitting slash also gave him a clearer understanding of it. The slash just now was just a pure platinum sky-splitting slash, without any spatial mysteries. Moreover, he had only used 80% of his strength. Although it still consumed a lot of energy, it wouldn't be a problem to use it 10 more times. When the time comes, if he combined the flaws of the solitary sword technique and spatial mysteries, how powerful would it be? At this point, if he still wanted to hide, he wouldn't be Chen Hao. Chen Hao was looking forward to it. What made Chen Hao even happier was that he finally understood his Tao and the direction he should work towards in the future. Just based on this point alone, even if his strength didn't increase, this trial in Sky City was worth it. Chen Hao. You're Chen Hao, the one who ranked 6th in the test? When Yu Qingfeng and Jian Wufei heard Chen Hao's name, they both revealed a trace of shock. What? Are you scared? Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly as he stared at the two of them. His expression and tone were filled with naked contempt and disdain. I, Yu Qingfeng, have indeed underestimated you. However, you're not worthy of making me, Yu Qingfeng, scared. Yu Qingfeng gritted his teeth. Chen Hao's expression and tone at this moment should be Yu Qingfeng's. But today, someone dared to treat him like this. And it was someone younger than him. How could he tolerate this? Cut the crap. Leave the woman to me. After I kill this woman, we'll work together to kill him. We can't let them escape, Jian Wufei said viciously. As she spoke, she suddenly attacked like a poisonous snake. Second update. Each chapter is 3,000 words. Dark Mountain won't shrink from paying his debt. Also, Dark Mountain said that he would pay it all in a month, not the end of this month. To be precise, he will pay it all around the 17th of next month. Dark Mountain will continue to work hard. There will be a third update tonight. Thank you everyone. Please support Dark Mountain. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.